Hey, you! Put the broom down and get over here. Officer Ethan Caldwell snapped his fingers at Maya. Before she could even look up, he kicked the janitorial cart hard. Dirty water splashed across her shoes and soaked the cuffs of her work pants. Before the wheels stopped rattling, Ethan stepped in and threw a folded stack of cash at her chest. "Entertain us," he said. "Money's yours. We need a black girl to play the criminal. You already look street ready, so no costume needed." The room went still. Maya did not look at the money. She looked at the camera in the back corner, then the second camera above the entry doors, then the small black microphone clipped to Ethan's collar. Eric Caldwell saw her eyes move and smiled. "Careful," he said. "Cameras don't always help people like you." Maya turned to him. "Then make sure yours is on." The smile thinned. Ethan grabbed her wrist. "Get on the mat." Maya pulled back once. Not hard. Just enough for the room to see his fingers tighten. Ethan dragged her forward. A donor in the second row lowered his coffee cup without drinking. A cadet shifted his boots under the chair. The technician near the soundboard lifted one hand toward his headset, then stopped when Captain Ruth Harris looked at him. Ethan pulled Maya onto the blue training mat and let go as if he had delivered evidence. "There," he said to the class. "Subject is already resisting." Maya looked at the red mark on her wrist. Then, at the technician. "Is that recording?" The technician's mouth opened. Ethan laughed. "You don't get to run the class." Maya did not look away. "Is it recording?" "Yes," Captain Harris said. She stepped closer. "Video and audio are live." Ethan turned sharply. "Captain, we're starting the scenario." "No," Harris said. "You started something else." Eric moved in with a clean, practiced calm. "Captain, this is a controlled compliance drill." Miss Williams was selected to assist. Maya looked at him. "Selected?" "Yes, not asked." Eric's jaw tightened. Ethan snapped. "You were told." Maya lifted her chin toward his microphone. "Say that again." The technician slowly slid one finger away from the mute button. At the rear of the room, Director Paul Mercer stepped forward. "Let's lower the temperature." Maya turned. "Mine or his?" No one answered. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. She glanced down. A preview glowed on the cracked screen. "Rehabilitation Center. Minimum payment overdue. Therapy may be paused." Ethan saw it, bent down, picked up the cash, and slapped it into her palm. "Looks like you need this more than your pride." Maya looked at the message again. Then she opened her fingers. The bills dropped onto the wet mat. Eric gave a quiet laugh. "Pride doesn't pay medical bills." Maya looked at him. "Neither does racism. But it leaves receipts." A donor in a navy blazer leaned toward the woman beside him. She did not lean back. Her eyes stayed on the money at Maya's feet. Captain Harris moved beside Maya. "Officer Caldwell, did she sign a participation release?" Ethan scowled. "It's role play. That wasn't my question," Eric said. "She's not being harmed. She's being asked to cooperate." Maya said. "Asked?" Eric's lips pressed flat. The facilities manager appeared at the edge of the mat, sweating through his collar. He glanced at Mercer before he looked at Maya. "Maya," he said quietly, "this is a major academy event. Let's not create trouble over a misunderstanding." Maya looked down at her soaked shoes, then at the overturned cart, then back at him. "My cart was kicked. Money was thrown at me. I was called a criminal. Which part confused you?" His mouth opened, closed. Mercer stepped in. "Miss Williams, no one wants this to affect your work arrangement." Harris turned her head. "Is that a reassurance or a threat?" Mercer froze. Maya faced the cameras. "For the record, my job has now been mentioned." Ethan scoffed. "You think you're in court?" "No," Maya said. "I think you forgot you're not." A cadet in the front row lowered his pen to his notebook. "Scratch, scratch, scratch." Ethan heard it and shot him a look. The cadet kept writing. Harris spoke without raising her voice. "Nobody turns off equipment." The technician pulled both hands away from the board. Eric smiled tightly. "Captain, that's unnecessary. Then it should not worry you." Ethan stepped toward Maya. "Scenario. Vehicle theft suspect. You ran. We stop you. You refuse commands. We demonstrate control." Maya answered at once. What vehicle? Ethan blinked. What? What vehicle was stolen? That's not the point. What description matched me? You fit the scenario. What description? Eric cut in. Suspects don't cross-examine officers. Citizens ask questions. Not when they're being detained. Am I allowed to leave right now? Ethan snapped. No. Then I am detained, Maya said, her voice piercingly clear for the microphones. Under what law? Eric cut in, his polite mask completely slipping. You're refusing to cooperate, Miss Williams. I am refusing to be your toy. Am I under arrest? No. Then clarify for the cameras. Maya stepped directly into Ethan's space, forcing him to look at her. If I am not allowed to leave, and I am not under arrest, what exactly are you doing to me? Eric's eyes flicked to Mercer. Maya did not move. The room didn't just go quiet. It went cold. The city representative lowered her head to write. The donors shifted away from the officers, suddenly realizing they were watching a live civil rights violation. Harris stepped half a pace forward. Officer Caldwell, clarify for the training record. Is Miss Williams a voluntary participant, a detained subject, or an employee being pressured to continue? Ethan glared at Maya. Eric looked toward Mercer. Mercer looked at the cameras. Maya held her ground in the center of the trap they had built for her. Before this goes one step further, she said, I want the record to show exactly how I got here. No one laughed this time. Captain Harris did not wait for Ethan to answer. Start with the cart, she said. The technician looked at Mercer first. Mercer gave him nothing. Not a nod. Not a shake of the head. Just a hard stare that told him he would remember this moment later, one way or another. Harris caught it. Mr. Lane, she said to the technician, do not look at the director. Look at the equipment. Is the recording active? The young man swallowed. Yes, Captain. Video? Yes. Audio? Yes. Both. Caldwell microphones? He checked the board. Both live. Maya kept her eyes on Ethan. Ethan's jaw worked once. This is ridiculous. Harris turned slightly toward him. Then it should be easy. Eric stepped forward, palms open, voice smooth. Captain, with respect, you're turning a simple demonstration into an investigation, Maya said. He kicked my cart. Eric looked at her. Allegedly. The donor in the navy blazer raised his eyebrows. The woman from the city table stopped writing for half a second, then wrote, faster. Maya pointed once, not at Ethan, but at the trail of dirty water spreading from the overturned bucket. That's not alleged. Ethan laughed under his breath. It's a mop bucket, not a civil rights case. Maya looked at him. You said that on mic? His smile vanished. Captain Harris said, Mr. Lane, mark the timestamp from the moment Officer Caldwell approached Miss Williams. The technician tapped the keyboard. Marked. Mercer stepped closer. Captain Harris, we do not need to turn this into a spectacle in front of guests. Harris did not look away from the mat. The spectacle started when an officer put hands on a civilian employee. The facilities manager shifted near the edge of the mat. His name badge trembled against his shirt pocket. Greg Wallace. Maya had seen him every week for almost a year. He had signed her timesheets, cut her hours during slow months, and once told her the academy liked workers who stayed invisible. Now he looked as if he wanted to disappear himself. Maya, he said, voice low, maybe we step outside and talk. Maya turned to him. Will my contract be safe? If I do. Wallace blinked. She waited. He rubbed his thumb against his palm. That depends on how this is handled. Harris snapped her eyes to him. Say that louder. Wallace paled. I didn't mean. Maya cut in. You meant it just fine. Eric tilted his head. See, that's the tone I mentioned. Maya turned back to him instantly. Quote the threat. Eric's lips parted. Quote it, Maya said. Ethan stepped in. Nobody threatened you. My work arrangement was mentioned. Because you're at work. And I was pulled off my work. Because you were selected. By whom? Ethan's eyes narrowed. Maya took one slow breath. By whom? Eric answered. By training staff, Harris said. Name the staff. Eric looked at Ethan. Ethan said, me. Harris nodded once. On what authority? Ethan looked toward Mercer. Mercer's face tightened. The room felt smaller. Not because anyone had moved closer, but because every exit Ethan had assumed was there had started to close. Maya's phone vibrated again. This time the sound was loud enough that several people heard it. She reached into her pocket, not hiding the motion, and turned the cracked screen toward herself. Another line from the rehabilitation center glowed across it. Payment. Required. Before next scheduled session. Ethan saw the screen. So did Eric. So did Wallace. Eric's voice lowered. This doesn't have to get expensive for anyone. Maya looked up. It already is. For who? Ethan said. Maya looked at the money on the floor. Not you. A silence followed that one. Short. Sharp. Captain Harris stepped to the side and addressed the class. Cadets. Eyes forward. This is now part of your lesson. Mercer said. Captain. She ignored him. When you make contact with a civilian, your words matter. Your hands matter. Your assumptions matter. If you cannot explain the first 30 seconds, you do not control the next 30. Ethan scoffed. So now she's teaching the class? No, Harris said. You are. A few cadets looked up. Eric smiled again, but it had no ease left in it. Fine. Let's be precise. Miss Williams, you were invited into a voluntary training scenario. Maya answered before he finished breathing. False. Eric's cheek twitched. You were offered compensation. After the racial insult? You keep saying racial. Because you keep avoiding it. Ethan snapped. I made a joke. Maya said. Then repeat it. No one moved. Maya said. Then repeat it. On mic. Ethan's face flushed purple. Eric instantly stepped in, shifting his shoulder to block the camera's line of sight to his brother. Officer Eric Caldwell. Harris's voice cracked like a whip. Clear the lens. All the way. Eric stiffened, forced to step back into the harsh light. The city representative wrote something and underlined it. Maya watched Eric's hands, not because she expected a strike, but because people like Eric often spoke with one hand while hiding the other. His fingers flexed once near his belt, then relaxed when he saw her notice. Maya said, No one needs to touch me for the rest of this. Ethan rolled his shoulders. You're not in charge. Then, tell me who is. I am, Harris said. Incorrect. Mercer's head turned sharply. Harris continued. This is an Academy event, under Academy policy, with civilian guests and recording equipment active. No single officer gets to improvise physical contact with a civilian employee. Ethan's nostrils flared. Captain, you're undermining an officer in front of recruits. Maya looked at the cadets. He did that himself. The front row cadet's pen scratched again. Eric's voice cooled. Miss Williams, do you understand that refusing commands in a police encounter can have consequences? Maya looked at him. Is this a police encounter? It's training. Then don't threaten me like it's a street stop. I'm explaining reality. No. You're borrowing danger to win an argument. The donor in the navy blazer gave a low sound, almost a cough, almost approval. His wife touched his sleeve, warning him not to get involved. He kept his eyes on Maya anyway. Wallace bent to pick up the cash, maybe to clear the floor, maybe to erase the image of it. Maya's head turned. Leave it. He froze with 2 fingers inches from the bills. Maya said, That's part of the record too. Wallace straightened quickly. Mercer's patience broke. Miss Williams, I'm asking you to step into the hallway. Maya did not move. Am I required to? Mercer stared. Harris looked at him. Answer carefully. Mercer's mouth tightened. No. Will my job be affected if I don't? Wallace looked at Mercer. Mercer looked at Wallace. Neither spoke. Maya turned slightly toward the city representative. Please note the silence. The woman did. Ethan muttered. Unbelievable. Maya faced him again. That's the first honest thing you've said. His hands curled. Harris saw it. Officer Caldwell. Ethan forced his fingers open. The technician whispered into his headset. Still rolling. He seemed to say it to no one, but the room heard him. Maya stepped back 1 pace, putting distance between herself and the brothers. Not retreating. Marking space. Here is what happened, she said. I was working. Officer Caldwell kicked my cart. He threw money at me. He used race to assign me the role of criminal. He grabbed my wrist. My job was mentioned when I objected. Now, the Academy is asking me to continue. If you feel for Maya and respect her strength in this moment, please hit like to support her. And comment where you are watching this video from, because there may be people near you watching this story at the very same time. Eric said, "That's your interpretation." Maya looked at the wet floor. The bills, her wrist, the cameras. "No, that's the order." Captain Harris turned to the technician. "Save the last 5 minutes as a separate file." Mercer snapped. "Captain Harris, that is not your call." Harris finally looked at him fully. "Then, make it yours." The director said nothing. The technician saved the file. A small beep came from the board. It was not loud. It was not dramatic. But Ethan heard it. Eric heard it. Mercer heard it. Maya heard it too. For the first time since the cart hit the floor, something in the room had been preserved before anyone powerful could rename it. The beep from the soundboard faded, but it left a mark on the room. Ethan heard it like a door locking. Eric heard it like a clock starting. Maya heard it like proof. Captain Harris kept her eyes on the technician. "File name?" The young man looked nervous enough to bite through his own tongue. "Training Hall A, Segment 1. Caldwell Williams contact. Add the timestamp." He typed quickly. "Done." Mercer's voice dropped. "Captain Harris, you are overstepping." Harris turned to him. "Director, an employee was pulled into a physical demonstration without consent. If preserving the record is overstepping, we have a bigger problem than this room." One of the donors shifted in his seat. The city representative wrote again, slower this time, as if she wanted every word to be readable later. Ethan pointed at Maya. "She's the one turning this into a circus." Maya looked at his finger. "Is pointing part of de-escalation?" His hand dropped. Eric stepped in fast. "Let's reset. Miss Williams, no one here is trying to humiliate you." Maya glanced at the money still lying on the damp mat. "Pick a better lie." A few cadets lifted their heads. Eric's eyes hardened. "You want to be treated with respect? Then act respectful." Maya answered at once. "Respectful to whom?" "To the officers in front of you." "Who touched me first?" Ethan snapped. "I guided you. By the wrist? You pulled away. After you grabbed me? You were refusing." "What command?" "Get on the mat." "Was that lawful?" "It was training." "Was I staff for training?" "No." "Did I sign?" Eric cut in. "You're not under arrest, Miss Williams." Maya turned to him. "Then, why am I being ordered?" "You're not being ordered." Ethan barked. "You were told." Maya looked back at Ethan's mic. Again, Ethan's mouth closed. The technician's hand hovered near the keyboard. He did not need to be told this time. He marked the timestamp himself. Harris saw it and gave no praise. She did not need to. The young man sat a little straighter. Mercer tried another route. "Miss Williams, I understand you feel disrespected." Maya did not blink. "Don't shrink it." "I beg your pardon." "You understand I was disrespected." "Say that." Mercer's jaw tightened. "This is not productive. It's accurate." Harris folded her arms. "Accuracy is productive." Greg Wallace, the facilities manager, stepped closer again, trying to smile the way men smile when they want a mess cleaned without touching it. "Maya, come on. We've always had a good working relationship." She looked at him. "You cut my hours last month. That was scheduling. You told me not to be visible during donor events. That was professionalism. You watched him drag me onto a mat." Wallace's smile died. Maya looked back to Ethan and Eric. "Start your scenario." The words surprised the room. Ethan blinked. "What?" "You wanted a criminal," Maya said. "Start." Eric studied her. "Now you're agreeing?" "No. I'm documenting." Harris said nothing, but the corner of her mouth moved almost invisibly. Mercer exhaled through his nose. "Proceed carefully." Ethan heard only the first word. He rolled his shoulders, stepped back, and lifted his voice for the room. Scenario: suspected vehicle theft. Subject fled on foot. Officers initiate contact. Maya cut in. Location of theft? Ethan glared. Parking lot. Which parking lot? It doesn't matter. It does in a report, Eric said. Fine. Academy East Lot. What time? Ethan's eyes flashed. 8:15. Maya looked at the wall clock. It's 7:40, Eric said. Scenario time. Good. Say that. Eric's stare sharpened. Scenario time. 8:15. Description of suspect, Ethan said. Black female. The room shifted. Maya waited. Harris looked at him. Continue. Ethan swallowed. Dark clothing. Maya looked down at her gray work shirt. Uniform shirt? With Academy vendor logo? Eric stepped in. Dark clothing can include a uniform. Height. Ethan hesitated. Maya said. Weight? No answer. Hair? No answer. Direction of travel? Eric's voice cooled. North. From East Lot? Yes. Where did officers first observe the subject? Ethan said. Near the training hall. Inside a restricted building? It's Academy property. As an employee? Eric's mouth tightened. As a subject. Maya turned toward the cadets. Watch the change. Harris did not stop her. Ethan's face reddened again. Don't talk to my class. Maya looked at him. Then teach it. A cadet in the second row wrote that down. The donor in the navy blazer leaned forward, elbows on knees now. No longer pretending this was just uncomfortable. Eric tried to regain rhythm. Subject matches description and refuses contact. Officer issues verbal command. Maya nodded. Issue it. Ethan pointed toward the mat. Stop. Maya stood still. I'm stopped. Turn around. Why? For officer safety. What specific safety concern? You're argumentative. What movement created danger? Eric said. Questions can indicate resistance. Maya said. Questions can also indicate citizenship. Ethan took one step closer. Harris's head turned slightly. He stopped. Eric spoke in that softer tone again, the one meant to sound reasonable on recordings. Miss Williams, in a real encounter, this kind of back and forth can escalate risk, Maya answered. Then train better questions. The city representative's pen paused, then underlined something twice. Mercer saw her do it. His posture changed. He no longer looked angry at Maya. He looked worried about paper. Ethan said, Hands behind your back. Am I under arrest? No. Detained? For investigation. What reasonable suspicion? Vehicle theft. What facts connect me? You match. Only race and gender? Eric said. And clothing. Vander uniform? Dark clothing. Anything else? Silence. Maya turned her palms outward. Then say it clearly. I am being stopped because I am a black woman in dark clothing inside the building where I work. Ethan snapped. That's not what I said. Maya looked at the technician. Playback can help. Eric shot the technician a look. The technician looked at Harris. Harris said, Stay ready. Ethan's hands curled again. You people always twist words. The room froze. Even Eric closed his eyes for half a second. Maya did not move. Harris's voice dropped. Officer Caldwell. Ethan realized it too late. Maya turned slowly toward his microphone. Please define you people for the training record. Ethan stared at her. No answer. Maya waited. The silence did more damage than shouting could have. Eric stepped forward, desperate to redirect. He means people who resist lawful procedure. Maya turned immediately. What lawful procedure? Eric said nothing. What law? Nothing. What policy? Still, nothing. Harris looked toward the cadets. Write down the difference between observation and assumption. Pens began moving. Scratch, scratch, scratch. The sound filled the room. Mercer stepped toward the technician. Pause the exercise. Harris looked at him. The exercise is finally useful. Maya stood on the mat with the wet cuffs of her pants clinging to her ankles and the money still untouched at her feet. Ethan's face was tight with anger. Eric's calm had thinned into calculation. Wallace looked sick. The donors were no longer whispering. The cadets were no longer watching a show. They were watching two officers try to justify a stop they had built out of nothing but power, race, and pride. Maya looked at Ethan one last time. Try again, she said. Ethan did not answer. For the first time that night, The man who had dragged her onto the mat had no command left to give. Captain Ruth Harris let the silence sit for 3 full seconds. Then she turned to the cadets. "Stop writing." Pens lifted. Ethan looked relieved for half a breath. Harris pointed at him. "Not because he's done. Because I want your eyes on what happens next." The relief vanished. Eric stepped closer to his brother, close enough to speak under his breath. Maya could not hear the words, but she saw the shape of them. "Calm down. Shift blame. Get control." Ethan did not look calm. The red had climbed from his neck to his ears. Harris walked to the center edge of the mat. "Officer Ethan Caldwell. Step back from Miss Williams." Ethan gave a hard laugh. "I'm not touching her. You heard the instruction." He took 1 step back, another. His jaw tightened, but he moved. Harris looked at Eric. "You too." Eric spread his hands. "Captain, I'm observing. Observe from there." He moved back beside Ethan. Maya stayed where she was, eyes forward, hands open at her sides. The money remained on the mat. The dirty water had thinned into gray streaks under the lights. Greg Wallace kept glancing at it, as if the mess itself might testify. Harris addressed the room. "This is no longer a control demonstration. It is a review of contact." Mercer cut in. "Captain, you do not have authority to redesign tonight's program." Harris turned. "Then remove me." The words landed flat and heavy. Mercer did not move. The donor in the navy blazer looked directly at Mercer now. The city representative clicked her pen once. The technician sat perfectly still, both hands visible above the board. Harris nodded toward the cameras. "Good. We proceed." Ethan muttered. "This is a setup." Maya looked at him. "You brought the props." Eric's eyes narrowed. "You're enjoying this." Maya turned to him. "No. I'm surviving it." That one stopped him. Harris walked toward Maya, but stopped an arm's length away. "Miss Williams, you are not required to remain on this mat. You may step down." Wallace inhaled sharply. Maya heard it. So did Harris. Maya asked, "If I step down, is my job safe?" Wallace looked at the floor. Harris looked at him. "Answer her." He swallowed. "I can't guarantee anything tonight." Maya nodded once. "Then I'm not free to leave. I'm just allowed to pay for leaving." A murmur moved through the back row. Mercer raised a hand. "Enough." Harris's voice sharpened. "Director, if you want this to end cleanly, stop adding pressure to the employee." Maya glanced at Harris. "Not gratitude. Not yet. Just recognition." Eric saw the look and tried to split it. "Captain Harris is giving you bad advice, Maya. She goes home with rank. You go home with consequences." Harris said, "Do not use her first name to soften a threat." Eric's smile flickered. "It wasn't a threat," Maya said. "Then repeat it, as a promise." Eric did not. Ethan stepped forward again before catching himself. "She's manipulating the room." Maya looked at the cadets. "Tell him what I touched." No one answered at first. Then the older cadet in the front row spoke. "Nothing, ma'am." Ethan shot him a look. "You weren't asked," Harris said. "He was." Another cadet raised her hand slightly. Uncertain. Harris nodded. "She has not moved toward either officer," the cadet said. "Her hands have stayed visible. Her questions are verbal only." Eric gave a dry laugh. "Great. Now we're letting cadets diagnose, conduct." Harris turned to the class. "That is exactly what report writing requires." Mercer's face hardened. "Captain," she held up one hand, still facing the cadets. "Facts first. Conclusion second. If your report says hostile, you must describe hostile. If your report says resisting, you must describe resistance. If your report says threat, you must describe danger, not discomfort. Danger." Maya saw 2 donors exchange a glance. The woman at the city table wrote the word danger in large letters. Ethan crossed his arms. "Fine. She's obstructing training." Maya answered immediately. "What training objective? Compliance. What policy? Officer safety. What behavior created risk? You keep asking questions." Maya looked toward the class. "Write that down too." The older cadet did. "Scratch. Scratch." Ethan turned on him. "Put the pen down." The cadet froze. Harris stepped in. Do not instruct my cadets to stop documenting. Ethan's voice rose. Your cadets? This is my demonstration. No, Harris said. It is the Academy's liability. Mercer closed his eyes briefly. That word changed the room. Liability. It did what dignity had not done. It made the people in suits shift forward. It made Wallace wipe his forehead. It made the technician check the recording file again without being told. Eric noticed and pivoted fast. Let's solve this. Miss Williams, we apologize if the opening felt offensive. You may step down. No one will hold it against you. Maya looked at him. Put that in writing. Eric paused. Right now, Maya said. Wallace cleared his throat. That's not how contracts work. Maya turned. But threats do. Wallace said nothing. Harris looked at the technician. Open a new marker. Title it, Employment Pressure. Mercer snapped. Absolutely not. The technician's hand froze above the keyboard. Harris did not raise her voice. Mr. Lane, you heard me. The technician looked at Mercer, then at the city representative. The city representative looked back without blinking. He typed. Marker added. Ethan laughed once. Ugly and short. You people love paperwork when it helps you. Maya did not flinch. Harris turned very slowly. Officer Caldwell, are you aware your microphone is live? Ethan's mouth shut. Eric whispered, Stop talking. Maya looked at Eric. That's the best advice you've given all night. A few cadets looked down, not to hide laughter, but to hide the shock of hearing someone say plainly what they were thinking. Harris addressed Ethan. You will now state the Academy policy that allows a civilian employee to be physically compelled into a demonstration. Ethan stared. Policy number, Harris said. He said nothing. Training exception? Nothing. Supervisor authorization? His eyes flicked to Mercer. Harris followed the glance. Director? Mercer adjusted his jacket. No authorization was given for physical compulsion. The words were careful, but they still hit Ethan in the chest. Eric stepped half a pace away from his brother. Maya noticed. Ethan noticed too. His face changed. Not much. Just enough. The first crack between the twins had opened. Ethan pointed toward Mercer. You told us to keep the event moving. Mercer's voice turned cold. I did not tell you to insult or grab anyone. Eric folded his arms and looked at the floor. Ethan stared at him. You heard him. Eric did not answer. Maya watched the silence pass between them like a blade. Harris saw it too and pressed. Officer Eric Caldwell, did you hear any instruction authorizing your brother to select Miss Williams through racial language? Eric lifted his head. No. Ethan spun toward him. Seriously? Eric's voice stayed even. I heard no such instruction. The room shifted again. Loyalty had found its limit. Ethan's anger turned frantic. You were standing right there. Eric said, Yes, and you said nothing. Eric looked at Maya, then at Harris, then back at Ethan. Neither did most of the room. That sentence struck more people than he intended. A donor looked away. Wallace swallowed. A cadet's face reddened. Even Mercer stopped adjusting his jacket. Maya did not let them hide in shared guilt. Then start now, she said. Eric looked at her. For a second, his polished calm slipped, and something like resentment showed underneath. You want confessions? No, Maya said. I want the truth before it gets edited. Harris turned to the technician. Back up segment 1 to the external drive. The technician nodded and connected a small black drive to the console. Mercer's voice hardened. That recording is Academy property. The city representative spoke for the first time. And this event is partially city-funded. Preserve it. No one argued with her. The technician clicked the mouse. Copying. The progress bar crawled across the screen. Ethan watched it like it was a fuse burning down. Maya looked at the screen, then at the bills on the mat, then at her wrist. She did not smile. This was not victory. Not yet. It was only the first piece of truth placed somewhere Ethan could not kick it over. The drive beeped. Copy complete. Harris held out her hand. The technician unplugged the drive and placed it in her palm. Mercer looked furious. Captain, you will account for that. Harris closed her fingers around the drive. I intend to. Then she turned to Maya. You may step down now. Maya looked at Wallace. Job safe? Wallace glanced at Mercer. Mercer's mouth tightened. Pending review. Maya nodded slowly. Then, I'll stay on the record. She turned back to Ethan and Eric. Continue your lesson. Continue your lesson. Ethan stared at Maya, as if she had slapped him. But she had done something worse. She had invited him to proceed under the one condition he hated most: clarity. Eric recovered first. He turned toward the cadets and smoothed his voice into instructor mode. Scenario resumes. Suspect is believed to be involved in a vehicle theft. Officers initiate contact, establish control, and determine identity. Maya said. Believed by whom? Eric's eyes cut to her. She waited. Dispatch, he said. What did dispatch report? A black female suspect leaving the area. Maya nodded once. Leaving what area? The east lot. What was stolen? Ethan snapped. A vehicle? What kind? He hesitated. Sedan. Color? Blue. Plate? That's irrelevant. Maya turned her palms slightly outward. To a vehicle theft? A cadet in the second row wrote quickly. Eric stepped in. Partial plate unknown. Vehicle described as blue sedan. Suspect seen leaving east lot. Maya looked at him. By witness or officer? Witness. Named? No. Reliable? Eric's jaw tightened. Anonymous caller. Maya looked toward the class. Anonymous caller. Black female. Dark clothing. No height. No weight. No plate. No confirmed vehicle. Ethan pointed at her. She's doing it again, Harris said. She's summarizing. Maya looked at Ethan's finger. Officer safety? His hand dropped again. Eric inhaled slowly. In the field, officers make decisions with incomplete information, Maya answered. Then train the difference between incomplete and invented. The city representative's pen stopped. She looked up. Mercer shifted near the back, no longer stepping forward, no longer confident enough to step back. Ethan tried to take command. Subject, turn around and place your hands behind your back. Maya stood still. Am I being detained based on that anonymous call? Yes. What facts connect me to the call? You match. Only race and gender? And clothing. My work uniform? Dark clothing. Inside my workplace? Near the area. What area? The training hall. The alleged theft was east lot. You could have moved. Did you see me move from the east lot? Ethan's mouth tightened. Maya turned to Eric. Did you? Eric said. This is not about you personally. Maya looked down at the cash on the mat, then up at him. Your brother made it personal before the scenario began. Ethan said. Because you were available. Maya's reply came sharp. Because I was black. The room did not breathe. Eric said. Don't put words in his mouth. Maya pointed with her eyes toward the saved recording drive in Captain Harris's hand. He brought his own. Harris looked at the class. Continue documenting. Scratch. 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 Ethan's temper strained against his face. He stepped toward Maya again, then remembered the cameras and stopped short. You're refusing a lawful command, he said. What law? Obstruction. What am I obstructing? An investigation. What investigation? The vehicle theft. What vehicle? Blue sedan. Confirmed stolen. Eric cut in. Reasonably suspected stolen. By anonymous report? Yes. Any corroboration? Eric said nothing. Maya took one small step back, slow and visible. I am creating distance. I am not fleeing. I am not reaching. I am not threatening. State your next lawful command. Ethan looked at Harris. Are you going to let her do this? Harris said. I am letting the record breathe. Mercer muttered. This is spiraling. The city representative replied without looking at him. No, it is clarifying. That one made Mercer close his mouth. Eric changed tactics. His tone softened. Miss Williams, let's make this easy. Provide your name and identification. Maya looked at him. Am I legally required to identify myself in this scenario? Yes, Ethan said. Eric said. Depends on circumstances. The brothers looked at each other. Maya's eyes moved between them. Which answer is the lesson? Ethan snapped. Stop playing lawyer. Stop playing judge. A cadet's head jerked up. Another cadet pressed his lips together. trying not to react. Eric's smoothness cracked for half a second. You think being clever protects you? Maya looked at his microphone. From what? He did not answer. Harris did. Good question. Eric turned toward her. Captain, you are encouraging hostility. Harris said. No. I am identifying fear tactics. Ethan laughed. Fear tactics? She's standing there fine. Maya looked at her wrist. Because fine is cheaper than medical care. The words came out before anyone could dress them up. For the first time, even Ethan did not have a quick answer. Wallace looked at Maya's wrist and then away. The donor in the navy blazer leaned back slowly, as if the room had finally become too heavy to sit forward in. The woman beside him folded her hands in her lap and stared at the bills Ethan had thrown. Eric recovered with a cold little nod. So this is about money. Maya looked at him. No, that was your mistake. Ethan frowned. What's that supposed to mean? You thought the money made it clean. Eric said. Nobody said clean. You threw cash at me after calling me a criminal. That says clean enough. Harris stepped toward the technician. Mark that exchange. The technician clicked. Ethan stared at the soundboard. Are we marking every word now? Maya answered. Only the useful ones. Eric's eyes narrowed. Useful for what? Maya did not blink. Later, the word landed harder than a threat because it did not sound like one. It sounded like a calendar. Mercer finally moved toward the mat again. This demonstration is suspended. Ethan turned on him. Now? Mercer's face stayed fixed. Now, Harris said. Before suspension, the status of Miss Williams needs to be resolved. Mercer looked at her. Resolved? How? Is she free to leave without employment consequence? Wallace swallowed audibly. Maya turned to him. Greg? He hated that she used his first name in front of them. It made him visible. I don't make final decisions, he said. But you warned me. I advised you. To protect my job? To avoid escalation. Maya nodded. So the warning was tied to my job. Wallace looked at Mercer. Mercer said nothing. Harris looked to the city representative. Please note that. The woman nodded. Eric stepped forward again. More careful this time. Miss Williams, if you leave now, no one here is stopping you. Maya looked at Ethan. Is that true? Ethan's mouth tightened. She waited. He said, leave. Without being labeled non-compliant? Ethan said nothing. Without a report claiming I disrupted training? Nothing. Without my contract being reviewed because I objected? Wallace looked sick. Mercer said, we cannot make broad promises in the middle of an event. Maya gave a small nod. Then, I'm still paying to leave. Harris turned to the cadets. That sentence belongs in every ethics class you will ever take. Mercer shot her a warning look. She ignored it. Eric tried one more angle. You're choosing to stay. Maya turned to him. Under pressure. You're choosing. Under pressure. Still choosing. Maya's eyes sharpened. That's how coercion gets dressed for court. The scratch of pens started again. Ethan had had enough. Fine. You want official? Here's official. The subject is non-compliant, argumentative, and refuses commands. Maya answered instantly. List the refused commands. Turn around. Legal basis. Investigation. Facts. Match. Description. Black female. Dark clothing. Anything else? Ethan's face went blank with fury. Maya said, that is not a person. That is a net. The room went still again. But this time, the silence belonged to her. Captain Harris stepped beside the mat, her voice firm. End scenario. Ethan looked relieved until she finished. Begin review. Eric's expression changed. Maya looked at Harris. Harris addressed the cadets. Question 1. What did the officers know? Question 2. What did they assume? Question 3. What did they do before they could explain either? A hand rose in the second row. Young cadet. Nervous voice. They knew almost nothing. Ethan snapped. Watch your mouth. Harris turned on him. Do not intimidate a cadet for answering an instructor. The cadet swallowed but kept going. They assumed the role matched her because of race and clothing. Another cadet raised his hand. They used the scenario to justify the contact after the contact already happened. The older cadet in the front row added. They labeled resistance before giving a clear, lawful order. Eric looked at the floor. Ethan looked at the exit. Maya looked at the money. Then, she bent down for the first time all night. Every eye followed her. She did not pick up the cash. She picked up her fallen broom from the edge of the mat, stood straight, and held it at her side. Ethan laughed bitterly. Going back to work? Maya looked at him. No. Preserving the scene. Captain Harris's eyes flickered toward the wet footprints. The bills, the cart, the marked wrist, the cameras, the witnesses. Then she turned to the technician. Photograph the mat before anyone cleans it. Wallace whispered. Oh God. Maya heard him. She looked at Ethan and Eric. Lesson's not over, she said. And this time, neither brother had the nerve to disagree. The technician stepped out from behind the soundboard with a small Academy camera in his hands. He looked at Mercer first. Captain Harris caught him again. Mr. Lane. He stopped. Photograph the mat. Yes, Captain. His first picture flashed across the dirty water near Maya's shoes. His second caught the scattered cash. His third captured the overturned cart at the edge of the training area. When he raised the camera toward Maya's wrist, he hesitated. Maya lifted her hand herself. Click. Ethan muttered. This is insane. Maya lowered her wrist. No. It's documented. Eric gave her a thin look. You like that word? I like words that survive editing. That one landed in Mercer's direction. The director's face tightened. Miss Williams, nobody is editing anything. Harris turned. Then no one should mind the backup. Mercer did not answer. The cadets watched the technician move around the mat. A few minutes earlier, the room had belonged to Ethan's voice. Now it belonged to small sounds. The camera shutter, the scratch of pens, the wet drip from the broken mop bucket, the faint hum of the recording system still running. Eric stepped closer to the edge of the mat, careful this time not to enter Maya's space. Let's speak plainly, he said. You're turning a training mistake into an accusation of racism. Maya looked at him. Mistake? Yes. Which part? Eric's eyes narrowed. The cart? Maya asked. The cash? The criminal joke? The wrist? The job threat? Pick one. Ethan snapped. It wasn't a joke. It was role play. Maya turned to him. So racial language is in your lesson plan? No. Then it wasn't role play. It was pressure. Pressure based on race? Ethan stopped. Eric jumped in. Based on scenario. What scenario existed before he said it? Eric's mouth held open for half a second, then closed. Harris looked at the cadets. That is sequencing. Learn it. What came first matters. The older cadet in the front row nodded once, slowly. Ethan pointed toward the fallen cash. She could have walked away, Maya said. Without losing my job? Wallace flinched. Ethan turned on him. Tell her. Wallace looked trapped. I said contract reviews were coming up, Maya said. After I objected. Wallace swallowed. Yes. After I was grabbed? Yes. After the racial insult. His voice dropped. Yes. The city representative wrote each answer as if she were taking sworn testimony. Eric saw the room slipping and changed direction. Miss Williams, do you know the difference between discomfort and discrimination? Maya stared at him. Do you? A cadet's pen froze midline. Eric's voice cooled. Discrimination requires intent. Harris cut in. No lecture from you on legal standards while you're under review in the room. Eric turned. I'm not under review, Maya said. You are now. He looked back at her. She did not look away. Mercer stepped forward, trying to reclaim the structure of the event. We are going to take a 10-minute recess. Guests may step into the reception area. Cadets remain seated, Harris said. Equipment stays on. Mercer's voice sharpened. Captain Harris, equipment stays on, she repeated. The city representative closed her notebook. I agree. Mercer looked at her. Miss Parker, this is an internal academy matter. She slipped the notebook into her bag. It became a city matter when city-funded training equipment recorded a civilian employee being pulled into a demonstration after a racial remark. Ethan whispered something under his breath. Maya heard one word. Unbelievable. She looked at him. Say it clearly. He did not. The donors began to rise, but not to leave casually. They moved slowly, eyes passing over the mat, the money, the wet floor, the cart. The woman beside the navy blazer donor paused near Maya. She did not offer comfort. She did not touch Maya's arm. She only looked at the bills and said quietly, "That should never have happened." Maya answered, "It did." The woman nodded, ashamed by the correction, and walked on. Harris moved beside Maya. "Do you want water?" Maya shook her head. "Do you want to sit?" "No." "Do you want to leave the mat?" Maya looked at Wallace. Wallace looked away. "No," Maya said. "Not yet." Eric heard that and smiled faintly. "So, now you refuse to leave." Maya turned fast. "Don't try that." "Try what?" "Turning pressure into choice." Eric held up both hands. "Your words. My record." Harris looked between them. "Officer Eric Caldwell. Step back." He did, but his eyes stayed on Maya. "You're very practiced at this." Maya's face stayed flat. At being questioned by men who already decided the answer, his expression flickered. Ethan gave a bitter laugh. "There it is." Maya looked at him. "What?" "The attitude." "What attitude?" "That. Describe it." Ethan clenched his jaw. "Describe it." She repeated. Eric said, "Defiant posture, challenging eye contact, refusal to comply with the officer's attempt to de-escalate." Maya faced him fully. "What attempt?" Eric said. "I asked to speak plainly, and then accused me of exaggerating racism. I asked a question. So did I. You're escalating. With what? Your tone. What words?" Eric did not answer. Maya stepped back half a pace again. Hands visible, movements slow. "Let the record show I increased distance while Officer Eric Caldwell labeled my speech as escalation without identifying a threatening action." Harris looked at Mr. Lane. He marked the timestamp. Eric's calm cracked. "You don't get to narrate police procedure," Maya said. "You don't get to invent it." Ethan stepped forward. "Enough." Harris's voice snapped. "Stop." He stopped, but barely. She looked at his boots. "You moved toward her after she increased distance." Ethan said. "I'm allowed to move," Maya said. "And I'm allowed to notice." Mercer rubbed one hand over his mouth. "This is going nowhere." Miss Parker, the city representative, turned back from the aisle. "It is going exactly where it needs to go." The room held. Then the older cadet raised his hand. Harris nodded. He stood slowly. "Captain, permission to ask a question?" "Granted." He faced Ethan and Eric, not Maya. If this was a real stop, and the subject asked whether she was free to leave, shouldn't that be answered clearly? Eric replied before Ethan could. "Depends on circumstances." The cadet nodded. What circumstance here prevented a clear answer? Eric's face hardened. "This is not your examination." Harris stepped in. "Answer the cadet." Eric looked at Mercer. Mercer looked away. Maya almost smiled, but did not give herself the luxury. Eric said, "Officer safety." The cadet glanced at Maya's open hands. "Based on what?" Ethan exploded. "Based on the fact that she wouldn't stop talking." The words rang out. No one moved. Mr. Lane marked the timestamp without looking at Harris. Maya looked at Ethan. "Talking is not a weapon." Ethan's chest rose and fell hard. Harris turned to the class. "There. That sentence goes in your notes too." Pens moved again. Eric stared at his brother as if Ethan had just cut a rope they were both standing on. Maya looked from one twin to the other. The split was wider now. Ethan kept handing the room fire. Eric kept trying to hide the smoke. Neither could undo the burn. Mercer cleared his throat. "Recess. Now." Harris nodded once. "Fine. 10 minutes. Equipment stays live. Evidence remains untouched. Miss Williams is not to be approached by either Caldwell." Ethan threw up his hands. "You're treating us like suspects." Maya bent, picked up the broom she had used to mark the scene, and set it gently across the edge of the mat, blocking the path between herself and the brothers. "No," she said, "like officers who need boundaries." Eric's eyes went cold, but he did not cross the broom. The 10-minute recess did not feel like a break. No one left quickly. The cadets stayed seated, stiff-backed, notebooks open. Donors gathered near the side wall in low voices that kept dying whenever Maya turned her head. The city representative, Miss Parker, stood near the soundboard with her phone in one hand and her notebook in the other, watching Mr. Lane copy files to a second drive. Captain Harris remained near the broom Maya had laid across the mat. Ethan stood 15 feet away, arms folded, breathing through his nose like every breath had to pass through pride first. Eric stood beside him, but not quite with him. There was space between the brothers now. Only a few inches, but enough for the room to notice. Maya noticed too. Eric leaned toward Ethan and whispered, "Stop feeding her." Ethan's eyes stayed on Maya. "You think I'm the problem? I think your mouth is." "My mouth? You're the one who let her turn this into a hearing." Eric's face hardened. "You kicked the cart. You stood there. So did everyone." Maya looked at Harris. Harris heard it too. She turned to Mr. Lane. "Are the Caldwell microphones still live?" Mr. Lane checked the board. His eyes widened slightly. "Yes, Captain." Eric stopped whispering. Ethan looked down at the small microphone on his collar, as if it had betrayed him personally. Maya said, "Careful. Cameras don't always help people like you." The line came back across the room like a returned bullet. Eric's face went still. Ethan's anger flashed. "You think this is funny?" Maya did not smile. "No. I think it's recorded." Miss Parker stepped closer to the soundboard. "Mr. Lane, preserve that exchange." "Yes, ma'am." Mercer came from the rear of the hall, moving fast now. He had spent the recess on his phone in the hallway, speaking in clipped phrases. His face had the polished calm of a man who had received advice he did not like. "Everyone," Mercer said. "We are going to resume with a modified format." Harris looked at him. "Define, modified. No further role play. We will conduct a brief instructor-led review, then dismiss." Maya said. "Who leads it?" Mercer looked at her as if he had not expected her to speak. "Captain Harris." Ethan's head snapped toward him. "Director." Mercer did not look at Ethan. "You and your brother will answer questions as needed." Eric's eyes narrowed. "As needed by whom?" Miss Parker said. "By the facts." Nobody replied to that. The cadets settled. Not relaxed. Settled like people preparing for impact. Harris stepped onto the mat, but kept distance from the money, the wet streaks, and the marked space where Maya had stood. Review begins with the first statement made to Miss Williams. Ethan said, "I already said it was a joke." Maya turned to him. "Say it again." He said nothing. Harris nodded to Mr. Lane. "Playback." Mercer raised a hand. "Captain, we do not need to replay inflammatory language." Miss Parker's voice was quiet. "Yes, we do." The donor in the navy blazer added, "We paid to see training. I'd like to know what kind." Mercer's hand lowered. Mr. Lane pressed a key. Ethan's voice filled the room again. "We need a black girl to play the criminal. You already look street ready, so no costume needed." The recording stopped. No one shifted this time. The room had already heard it once. Hearing it again did not shock them. It pinned them. Saris faced Ethan. "Training? Purpose of that statement?" Ethan swallowed. "Context. What context? Realism. What made race necessary?" He glared at her. Harris waited. Eric spoke. "It was poor wording." Maya said, "Poor wording is when you call someone by the wrong name." Eric looked at her. Maya continued. "That was a choice." Harris turned to Eric. "Do you disagree?" Eric looked at Ethan, then at Mercer, then at the donors. "No." Ethan stared at him. "Unbelievable." Eric's voice stayed low. "You said it." You laughed. Eric did not answer. Maya watched the space between them grow another inch. Harris moved to the next point. "Officer Ethan Caldwell, did Miss Williams consent before physical contact?" Ethan said. "She was being moved into position." Harris asked, "Did she consent?" "No." "Did she refuse?" She pulled back. "After contact?" He said nothing. Harris looked to the cadets. "What matters in that sequence?" The young woman in the second row raised her hand. "The officer initiated contact first." "Correct," the older cadet added. "Calling her resistance after grabbing her changes the facts." Ethan snapped. "I didn't ask you." Harris turned. I did. The older cadet held Ethan's stare for half a second, then looked back at Harris. It creates a false report. The phrase hit harder than anyone expected. False report. Ethan's mouth opened. Eric spoke first. Careful. Maya looked at Eric. Now you like careful. Miss Parker wrote again. Mercer's eyes followed her pen like it was a blade. Harris continued. Officer Eric Caldwell, you described Miss Williams's posture as hostile. Identify the threatening movement. Eric stood straighter. Her refusal to comply increased tension. That is not a movement. She challenged commands. That is speech. She questioned authority. That is not a threat. Eric's calm began to fray. In the field, questioning can delay officer action, Maya answered. Then train officers to answer faster. A few cadets looked down at their notes. One donor pressed his lips together. Harris did not smile. Officer Caldwell. Threatening movement? Eric paused too long. Maya said, there wasn't one. Eric looked at her. You don't get to answer for me. You weren't answering. Harris turned to the cadets again. Write the distinction. Delay is not danger. Discomfort is not danger. Embarrassment is not danger. Mercer shifted. He wanted to object, but Miss Parker was writing every word. Ethan leaned toward Eric and muttered, You're letting them bury us. Eric shot back, louder than he meant to. You dug the hole. Mr. Lane marked the timestamp. Ethan heard the click. He spun toward the soundboard. Stop marking everything, Harris said. Stop saying things that matter. Maya looked at Ethan. Harder than karate? The room inhaled as one. Ethan took one step forward. The broom lay across the mat between them. He stopped at it. Maya looked down at the broom, then back up. Good choice. Eric grabbed Ethan's sleeve. Not roughly. Just enough to remind him the cameras were still there. Ethan jerked his arm free, but he did not cross the broom. Harris's voice turned colder. Officer Ethan Caldwell, you will not approach Miss Williams again tonight. Ethan's laugh came out bitter. Or what? Miss Parker answered before Harris could. Or I request immediate suspension of the event and notify the city attorney. Mercer went pale around the mouth. Eric's posture changed. He was no longer managing Maya. He was managing exposure. He turned slightly toward the room. For the record, I did not authorize the initial contact. Ethan stared at him. What did you just say? Eric kept his eyes forward. I did not authorize the initial contact. You stood beside me. I did not touch her. You backed me. I attempted to manage the scenario, Maya said. You managed the cover. Eric looked at her with something sharp and private in his eyes. Harris stepped between the lines of sight. Enough. We proceed with the review. Ethan pointed at his brother. He called her hostile. Eric snapped back. After you called her a criminal, the room went quiet again, but this silence was different. It was not fear. It was recognition. The twins were no longer defending the academy. They were separating their fingerprints. Maya looked at Miss Parker, then at Harris, then at the cadets. That should be in the record too. Mr. Lane did not wait. Click. Timestamp marked. Mercer rubbed the bridge of his nose. This review is adjourned. Harris turned sharply. No. Mercer looked up. Captain, we have not completed the sequence. I said. Adjourned. Miss Parker closed her notebook. Director Mercer, if you end the review before the sequence is complete, I will note that the Academy stopped the process after the officers began contradicting each other. Mercer's jaw clenched. The donor in the navy blazer stood. And I will note the same to the board. Ethan looked around the room, finally seeing what Maya had seen minutes earlier. Witnesses, not spectators. Witnesses. Harris faced him again. Officer Caldwell, final question for this segment. At the moment you called Miss Williams, already resisting, what had she done? Ethan stared at the floor. Harris waited. Maya waited. The cadets waited. Eric did not help him. Ethan's voice came out low. She pulled her wrist back. Harris asked, before or after you grabbed it? Ethan's eyes lifted. The answer sat in the room before he spoke. After. Harris nodded. Segment complete. Mr. Lane marked the file. Maya finally stepped over the broom. Not toward Ethan, but away from the mat. She moved slowly, giving the cameras nothing but a woman, leaving a space she had never agreed to enter. Ethan watched her go with his fists closed. Eric watched the cameras. Mercer watched Miss Parker. Captain Harris watched the room. Maya stopped at the edge of the mat and looked back at the two brothers. "You wanted a criminal," she said. "You found a witness. No one told her to return to the center. No one told her to pick up the money. No one called her subject. Not anymore." Captain Harris did not let Maya's words fade into applause. There was none to begin with. She turned to the cadets and pointed toward their notebooks. "Close them." The pages stopped moving. "Now look up." Every face lifted. Harris stepped back from the mat, letting the whole room see the evidence without her standing in front of it. The wet streaks, the scattered money, the broom across the boundary line. Maya at the edge of the mat. Ethan and Eric separated by more than distance now. "This is the question," Harris said. "Not who had the badge. Not who had the louder voice. What did you observe?" Ethan threw his hands out. "You already asked that, and you still haven't learned from the answers." Eric said, "Captain, this is becoming personal." Maya turned her head. It started personal. Harris raised one hand, stopping both sides before the room slipped back into argument. "Cadets, observations. No conclusions, no labels. Facts only." For a second, no one moved. Then the older cadet in the front row stood. His chair gave a short scrape against the floor. "Officer Ethan Caldwell made first contact with Miss Williams," he said. Harris nodded. "Continue." He kicked her cart, threw money, used race in assigning her the role, grabbed her wrist, called her resistant after she pulled back. Ethan's face tightened with every sentence. Harris looked to the second row. Next, a young woman stood, voice careful but firm. Officer Eric Caldwell repeatedly characterized her conduct instead of describing it. He said hostile, difficult, escalating. He did not identify a threatening action. Eric's expression went blank. Maya watched him hide behind stillness. It was the first time all night his silence looked less like control and more like retreat. Harris looked to another cadet. Next, a man near the aisle rose halfway, unsure if he should stand all the way. Harris waited until he did. Director Mercer tried to stop the review after the officers contradicted each other, he said. Mercer's head snapped up. "Cadet, be very careful." The cadet's throat moved. Harris said, "He is being careful. He is using observable facts." Miss Parker opened her notebook again. The cadet kept standing. He called it a miscommunication before the sequence was finished. Mercer looked toward Miss Parker, then away. Harris nodded. "Sit." The cadet sat. Ethan laughed once, sharp and bitter. "So that's it? We're taking testimony from recruits now?" Miss Parker answered from the side of the room. "If they witnessed it, yes." Eric turned toward her. "This is still an internal training matter." She looked at the wet mat, then at Maya. "Not anymore." The donor in the navy blazer stood again. This time his wife did not touch his sleeve. "My foundation funds 3 academy programs," he said. "I want the full recording preserved." Mercer said, "Mr. Whitcomb, all of it," the donor said. "Not a summary, not an edited training note. All of it." Maya looked at him for the first time. He did not look heroic. He looked uncomfortable, late, maybe ashamed. But he had said it out loud. Sometimes late was all the truth got. Harris turned to Mr. Lane. "Confirm external copy." Mr. Lane checked the drive in Harris's hand, then the console. "External copy complete. Original still on server. Create second external copy." Mercer stepped forward. "That is excessive," Miss Parker said. "It is prudent." Mr. Lane reached for another drive. Eric watched the movement with cold focus. "Who controls those copies?" Harris said. "Chain of custody begins now," Eric said. "With you? With everyone watching." Maya looked at him. "Harder to lose things in a crowded room." Ethan snapped. "Nobody's losing anything." Maya looked down at the cash. "You already lost the lesson." The second copy began. The progress bar crept across the monitor. The room watched it like weather approaching. Mercer pulled Wallace aside near the edge of the hall and spoke in a low voice. Maya could not hear every word, but she heard enough. Contract language? Outside vendor? Personnel issue? Wallace nodded too quickly. Maya turned toward them. Say it here. Both men froze. Mercer straightened. Excuse me? If my job is being discussed, say it here. Wallace wiped his forehead. Nobody said your job was. Maya cut him off. You did. Harris looked at Wallace. Earlier, you tied her cooperation to contract review. Wallace looked at Mercer for help. Mercer gave him none. Wallace's shoulders sank. I said, the reviews were coming up. Maya asked. After I objected? Yes. After he grabbed me? Yes. After he used race? Wallace's voice dropped. Yes. Mr. Lane marked the timestamp again. Ethan turned on him. Are you just clicking every time she talks? Mr. Lane looked up, pale but steadier than before. Every time the record changes. A few cadets looked at him with new respect. Eric saw it and tried to recover the room. This is what manipulation looks like. She repeats phrases until people accept them. Maya faced him. Then answer once. Answer what? Was I wrong? Eric's mouth tightened. Cart? He said nothing. Cash? Nothing. Race? His jaw flexed. Wrist? His eyes flicked toward Ethan. Job? Silence. Maya turned back to the cadets. That is not repetition. That is a checklist. The older cadet wrote the word checklist. Harris saw it. Good. In the field, checklists save people from stories. Mercer exhaled hard. Captain, enough with the commentary. Harris looked at him. Then, provide correction. He did not. The second drive beeped. Copy complete. Mr. Lane removed it and placed it on the table beside Miss Parker. She took out an evidence envelope from her folder. The motion changed the air. This was no longer a training room pretending to handle a misunderstanding. This was a room beginning to protect itself from its own leadership. Eric's eyes followed the envelope. You brought evidence envelopes to a demonstration? Miss Parker sealed the drive. I've been to enough demonstrations. Ethan muttered. Of course. Maya looked at him. Define that. He looked away. Harris turned back to the cadets. Final round. What did Miss Williams do? The question seemed simple. No one answered quickly. Then the young woman in the second row stood again. She asked if she was ordered or asked. Another cadet stood. She asked if she was detained. Another. She asked for the suspect description. Another. She kept her hands visible. The older cadet added, she created distance. A cadet near the back said, she asked that the record be preserved. Harris nodded after each one. Then she asked, did anyone observe Miss Williams threaten either officer? No one stood. No one? Harris asked. Silence. Did anyone observe her strike, lunge, reach, or attempt to flee? No one stood. Ethan stared at the floor. Eric stared at the sealed envelope. Maya stood at the edge of the mat, fingers resting lightly around the broom handle. She had never felt so tired without moving. Harris turned toward Mercer. Director, the review has produced sufficient concern. I recommend immediate administrative hold on both Caldwell officers, pending formal inquiry. Ethan's head snapped up. You can't be serious, Miss Parker said. I second the recommendation to the city liaison. Mercer looked cornered. Donors on one side, city representative on the other. Cadets watching. Cameras running. His star officers unraveling. Maya standing there in soaked shoes, not saying a word because the room had finally learned how to speak without her dragging each sentence out of it. Mercer adjusted his cuffs. Officers Ethan and Eric Caldwell will step out of instructional duties pending administrative review. Ethan exploded. Because of her? Maya met his eyes. Because of you. Eric did not defend him. That hurt Ethan more than the words. Harris pointed toward the side exit. Both of you. Now. Ethan looked as if he might argue, but Miss Parker lifted her phone and began typing. He saw it. Eric saw it. They moved. As they passed Maya, Ethan slowed. Harris's voice cut in. Keep walking. He did. Eric paused half a step behind his brother and looked at Maya. For once, he had no polished line ready. Maya gave him one anyway. You wanted me on record, she said. Now you're on it too. Eric's face tightened, and he followed Ethan out. The door closed behind them. No one clapped. No one cheered. Mr. Lane sealed the second copy. Miss Parker signed across the flap. The cadets sat with their notebooks open, and their faces changed. Wallace stood near the wall, smaller than he had looked all evening. Mercer stared at the sealed envelope like it had teeth. Captain Harris walked to the edge of the mat and stopped beside Maya. "You can step down now," she said quietly. Maya looked at the money on the floor, then at the dirty water, then at the doorway where the twins had disappeared. "No," she said. "Not until somebody writes down who cleans this mess." Wallace flinched. Harris looked at him. "Greg?" He swallowed. "I'll have another crew handle it." Maya turned slowly. "No." He blinked. "No? You clean it." The room went still one last time. Wallace looked to Mercer. Mercer did not save him. Maya placed the broom upright in Wallace's hand. "You wanted invisible work," she said. "Start there." Wallace took the broom, and for the first time that night, Maya stepped off the mat by choice. Maya's first step off the mat did not feel like escape. It felt like crossing a line someone else had drawn for her and refusing to ask permission. Greg Wallace stood behind her holding the broom like it weighed more than wood and plastic. He looked at the wet streaks, the scattered bills, the overturned cart, then at the donors still watching from the side. His face carried the dull panic of a man who had spent years giving orders to invisible workers and had suddenly become visible himself. Captain Harris pointed to the mat. "Start with the water." Wallace stared at her. "Captain, I'm facilities management." Maya turned back. "Then manage it." A cadet near the front lowered his eyes fast, but not before Maya saw his mouth tighten. Not a smile. Something harder. Recognition. Wallace bent slowly, picked up the mop, and pressed it into the puddle. The gray water spread before it gathered. His first push was clumsy, too light, useless. Maya said nothing. That made it worse. Mr. Whitcomb, the donor in the navy blazer, watched Wallace drag the mop once across the mat. "How long has she worked here?" Wallace looked up. "What?" "Maya Williams," Whitcomb said. "How long?" Wallace's hand tightened on the mop handle. 11 months, roughly. "Contract?" "Yes." "Benefits?" Wallace glanced at Mercer. "She's not academy staff." Maya let out a short breath through her nose. "Useful when you want the floors clean. Convenient when you want responsibility dirty." Miss Parker wrote that down. Mercer saw her pen move and stepped in. "We should not discuss employment classification in this setting." Maya looked at him. "You discussed it when you needed leverage." Harris turned toward Mercer. "She's right." Mercer's face hardened. "Captain Harris, I have allowed considerable latitude tonight," Harris said. "You haven't allowed anything." "The record did." The technician froze halfway through, sealing the second evidence envelope, as if even he felt the sentence land. Mercer's jaw worked. He did not answer. From the side exit, raised voices leaked into the hall. Ethan first, sharp and angry. Eric next, lower, but no less cutting. "You threw me under the bus," Ethan said. "You drove it into the room." Eric shot back. The door had not closed all the way. Everyone heard. Harris looked at Mr. Lane. "Still rolling?" "Yes, Captain." Miss Parker lifted her phone. "Keep that audio if it's captured." Mercer moved toward the side door, but Harris was faster. "Leave it open." Mercer stopped. "They're outside the instructional area. They are still wearing academy microphones." Mr. Lane checked the board, then nodded. "Both active." Maya looked toward the open door. Ethan and Eric had stepped into the corridor, thinking distance meant privacy. Their voices came through with the ugly freedom of men who believed the room was no longer listening. Ethan said, "You should have backed me." Eric replied, "I tried. You kept talking. You repeated nothing. I repeated enough not to drown with you." A cadet whispered, "Damn," then caught himself. Harris did not correct him. Ethan's voice rose. "She baited us," Eric said. "No. You baited her and forgot she could read." The room stiffened. Maya's eyes moved to the soundboard. Mr. Lane marked the timestamp. Mercer strode to the door and pushed it open wider. "Officers Caldwell." The hallway went quiet. Mercer's voice dropped, colder than before. "Remove your microphones and report to administrative conference, room B. Ethan said something too low to hear. Mercer snapped. Now. A moment later, Ethan appeared at the doorway. His face was red, but his eyes had changed. The rage was still there, but beneath it sat calculation, the first shape of fear. Eric stood behind him, already removing his mic, already separating himself from the blast radius. Ethan unclipped his microphone and shoved it into Mercer's hand. Maya watched the movement. "Careful," she said. "Evidence can bruise." Ethan looked like he might answer. Eric touched his sleeve. "Don't." Ethan pulled away. "Don't touch me." Maya saw it then. The twins were no longer one machine. They were two men searching for the cleaner side of a dirty story. Miss Parker stepped toward Mercer. "Those microphones need to be logged," Mercer said. "They will be." Now, he looked at her. She held out an evidence bag. For a second, no one moved. Then, Captain Harris took the microphones from Mercer, placed them in the bag, and handed it to Miss Parker. Ethan laughed bitterly. "This is theater," Maya said. "You wrote the opening scene." His eyes cut to her. Harris pointed down the hall. Conference room B. Eric went first. Ethan followed. Slower, shoulders tight, no longer performing for the room because the room had stopped being his. The door closed this time. Miss Parker sealed the bag and signed across the flap. "I'll need the names of everyone present." Mercer's face drained a shade. "Everyone?" "Yes. Guests, cadets, staff, contractors." Wallace stopped mopping. Miss Parker looked at him. "You too." He nodded quickly and went back to the water. Maya stepped to the edge of the first row. A cadet, the young woman who had spoken earlier, stood halfway as if offering her chair. Maya shook her head. "Keep it." The cadet sat slowly. "Yes, ma'am." That word, ma'am, moved through Maya differently than the rest of the night had. Not because she needed it, because it had not been forced. It had not been purchased. It had not been thrown at her feet. Harris came beside her. "You still want to remain?" Maya looked at the open space where the twins had stood. "They'll try to rename it in that room." "Yes." "You'll be there?" "Yes." "Will I?" Harris's answer came after a beat. "They'll say, it's administrative." Maya nodded. "Meaning no." "Meaning they'll try." Miss Parker approached them. "Miss Williams, you have the right to provide a written statement before any internal summary is drafted." Mercer looked over sharply. "Miss Parker." She did not turn. "I'm speaking to the civilian employee involved," Maya said. "When?" "Now, if you want." Wallace pushed the mop too hard and sent water against the edge of the mat again. He muttered an apology to no one. Maya looked at the bills still lying there. "What about that?" Harris followed her gaze. "Photographed, logged, then returned to Officer Caldwell or retained if relevant." Maya said, "It's relevant." Miss Parker nodded. "Then it stays." Mercer's voice tightened. "Cash on a training floor is not evidence of Academy policy." Maya turned toward him. "No, it's evidence of what Academy policy allowed." "Again," Miss Parker wrote. Mercer looked tired now. Not sorry. Tired. There was a difference Maya did not miss. The donor, Mr. Whitcomb, walked over to Mercer. "Director, my board will request a formal report," Mercer said. "You'll receive one. Not from your office alone." Mercer held his stare. "Are you withdrawing support?" Whitcomb looked at Maya, then at the mop in Wallace's hand, then at the sealed drive on Miss Parker's table. "I'm reviewing what we've been supporting." That struck Mercer harder than anything Maya had said. Money had finally spoken to power in its own language. Maya hated that it mattered, but she used it. "Put that in the report too," she said. Whitcomb looked at her. Maya's voice stayed even, not as charity, as sequence. He nodded once. "Fair." Miss Parker handed Maya a legal pad and a pen. "Write what happened in order. No adjectives unless you need them. Times if you remember. Exact words if you can." Maya looked at the pen. For a moment, the room narrowed to that small object. Earlier, a pen could have been used to make her sign away the truth. Now, a pen was being offered to preserve it. She took it. Harris pointed to a small table near the first row. "Use that." Maya sat. The chair felt too low. Her soaked socks were cold inside her shoes. Her wrist pulsed. Her phone vibrated again in her pocket, but she did not look yet. She placed the legal pad in front of her and wrote the first line. I was working when Officer Ethan Caldwell called me from the mat. She stopped, crossed out called, and wrote, shouted. Then she continued. Behind her, Wallace kept mopping. The sound was uneven, embarrassed, human. Mr. Lane saved another file. Miss Parker collected names. Mercer made calls he could no longer make privately. Captain Harris stood near Maya's shoulder, not reading, just standing. Maya wrote until the words stopped shaking. When she finished the first page, she looked toward the closed side door. Beyond it, Ethan and Eric Caldwell were probably building their version. But for once, hers had arrived first. Maya finished the second page before anyone came out of conference room B. She wrote in clean lines. Not pretty, not emotional, clean. Ethan kicked the cart. Ethan threw money. Ethan used the word black before the word criminal. Ethan grabbed my wrist. Eric called my questions hostile. Director Mercer mentioned my work arrangement after I objected. Greg Wallace tied my contract review to how I handled the incident. She paused over the last sentence, then added, the cameras were already recording. That mattered most. Captain Harris placed a small bottle of water near her elbow. Maya had not asked for it, but the captain did not say a word. That made it easier to accept. Maya unscrewed the cap, took one sip, and kept writing. Across the room, Wallace was still cleaning. The mop dragged in crooked lines. The money had been photographed and left untouched inside a taped square Mr. Lane had made on the floor. The bills looked smaller now, not powerful, not tempting, just paper caught in evidence. Miss Parker approached the table. May I? Maya slid the first page toward her. Miss Parker read, without changing expression. Halfway through, her eyes stopped on one line. She looked up. You wrote that, officer, Eric Caldwell said. Cameras don't always help people like you. Yes. Exact words? Exact. Mr. Lane raised his hand from the soundboard. It's on the opening file. Miss Parker nodded. Mark it separately. Mr. Lane typed. Marked. The door to conference room B opened. Eric came out first. He had fixed his face. Not relaxed. Fixed. His shirt was straight, his hands loose. His eyes set in that careful place between regret and strategy. Ethan came behind him, still too tight in the shoulders, still red around the neck. Mercer followed last, holding a folder he had not carried in with him. Harris stepped away from Maya's table. Are we reconvening? Mercer said. We are clarifying next steps. Maya stood. Eric looked at the legal pad in her hand. Writing a novel? Maya said. A sequence. Ethan gave a low laugh. You love that word. You hate it, because it's not the truth. Maya tilted her head. Then, correct it. Eric moved quickly. No one is correcting anything in an open room. Miss Parker stepped forward. Why not? Eric's jaw shifted. Because administrative review requires order, Harris said. Order began when the evidence was preserved. Mercer raised a hand. Enough. Officers Caldwell have provided preliminary statements. Miss Williams will provide hers. The Academy will suspend tonight's demonstration and initiate a formal review. Maya looked at him. Suspend the event or suspend them? Mercer paused. Ethan snapped. There it is. She wants punishment. Maya turned. I want the words to match the damage. Eric said. Damage? You're standing fine. Maya lifted her marked wrist. Still measuring pain by whether you can see blood? Harris's eyes cut to Eric. He realized the line too late and closed his mouth. Miss Parker wrote it down. Mercer said. Both officers will be removed from instructional duties pending review. Paid? Maya asked. Ethan stared at her. What? Paid leave? Mercer said. That is a personnel matter. Maya looked at Miss Parker. Please note, he answered the easy part. Miss Parker did. Eric's smile returned, thin as wire. You think you know how this works, Maya said. I know how it disappears. That took the smile off. Mr. Whitcomb, the donor, spoke from the side. Director, will the board receive unedited copies? Mercer turned too quickly. The board will receive appropriate materials, Miss Parker said. Unedited copies are already preserved. Mercer's face tightened. Preserved does not mean distributed. Maya looked at him. That sounds like the next fight, Harris said. And one you should avoid. The room gave Mercer no shelter. Not the donors, not the city representative, not the cadets, not even the staff. Wallace kept mopping, head down, pretending not to listen while missing nothing. Eric changed direction. Miss Williams, may I ask one question? Harris said. No, Maya said. Let him. Harris looked at her. Maya kept her eyes on Eric. 1. Eric stepped forward, stopping before the broom line even though Maya had moved away from it. He noticed that she noticed. Why stay? He asked. You said you didn't volunteer. You said you were pressured. You said you could leave. So why stay on the mat? Maya did not answer right away. Ethan smirked. Because she wanted a scene. Maya looked at him once, then back at Eric. Because when I tried to leave, my job followed me. Wallace stopped mopping. Eric said, That's not an answer. It's the whole answer. You could have walked out. And come back to what? Eric held her gaze. Maya continued. A canceled contract. A report saying I disrupted training. A room full of people remembering your version first. Eric said nothing. Maya lifted the legal pad. So, I stayed long enough to make mine harder to bury. Miss Parker's pen moved again, slower this time. Ethan scoffed. Always the victim. Maya turned to him. Always the officer? His face changed. Harris stepped in before he could move or speak. Officer Ethan Caldwell. Do not respond. He swallowed whatever he had loaded behind his teeth. Mercer looked exhausted. Miss Williams, you may submit your written statement to Miss Parker. Maya handed the pages over. Mercer added, You are excused from the remainder of the evening. Maya looked at Wallace. Am I still scheduled tomorrow? Wallace looked to Mercer. Maya said, Don't. Wallace flinched. She waited. He cleared his throat. Yes. Same shift. Same hours? Yes. Any discipline? No. Put it in writing. Wallace looked pained. I don't have... Miss Parker handed him a blank sheet from her folder. You have paper. The donor in the navy blazer offered a pen. Wallace stared at it as if it were a trap. Maya said, It is. He looked at her. She did not soften it. For you. Wallace took the pen and wrote with a stiff hand. Maya Williams remains scheduled for her regular shift tomorrow. No disciplinary action from tonight's incident will be issued by facilities management pending formal review. Harris read it. Sign. He signed. Date. He dated it. Maya took the paper, folded it once, and slipped it into her pocket beside her phone. The phone vibrated again. This time she checked it. Rehabilitation Center. Please contact billing before 9 a.m. to prevent interruption of therapy. Her thumb hovered over the screen. For 1 second, the room blurred at the edges. Not from tears, from numbers. Rent, groceries, gas, medicine, therapy, work shoes, bus fare if the car failed again. All the little American emergencies that never made speeches but took people apart one late notice at a time. Ethan saw her looking. Maybe you should have picked up the cash, he said. Maya looked at the taped square on the mat. Then at him. You still think that money was payment. What was it? Proof. Mr. Lane marked the timestamp. Ethan cursed under his breath. Eric closed his eyes. Mercer said, Officer Caldwell. Ethan threw his hands out. What? She gets to talk all night? Maya stepped toward the exit. No, I'm done. Harris moved with her. Not escorting, just matching pace. At the edge of the hall, Maya stopped near her janitorial cart. One wheel was bent inward from Ethan's kick. The bucket was cracked along the rim. Her cleaning rags lay half-soaked on the floor. She picked up the cart handle. It wobbled. Wallace hurried over. I'll have that replaced. Maya looked at him. In writing? He nodded fast. In writing. Tonight. Yes. She let go of the cart. Mr. Whitcomb stepped forward. Miss Williams. Maya turned. He held his hands open, careful not to offer anything that looked like pity. I'm sorry I didn't speak sooner. Maya looked at him for a long moment. Then don't be late next time. He lowered his eyes. Fair. She walked past him. At the door, Eric spoke behind her. You think this changes anything? Maya stopped, but did not turn around. The room waited. She answered. It changed who gets to write it down. Then she pushed the door open and stepped into the hallway. Behind her, the training hall remained bright, recorded, and full of people who could no longer pretend they had only watched a drill. The hallway outside Training Hall A felt too narrow after the room she had just left. Maya walked past the framed academy slogans without slowing. Honor, discipline, service. The words hung in polished metal letters, bright enough to reflect her face as she passed, too clean to carry what had happened under them. Captain Harris walked beside her for several steps before speaking. You don't have to go into any more rooms tonight. Maya kept walking. But they will. Yes, and my name will be in those rooms. Harris did not answer. That was answer enough. Maya stopped near the vending machines at the end of the hall. One hummed behind scratched glass, full of bottled water, peanut crackers, and candy bars lined up like nothing in the building had shifted. Her reflection looked back at her from the machine's surface. Damp pant legs, work shirt wrinkled from Ethan's grip, hair still tied tight, face steady because it had no permission to fall apart yet. Harris stood a few feet away. Miss Parker has your statement. Paper gets lost. Not this time. Maya looked at her. You've said that before? Harris's mouth tightened. Yes. And been wrong? A pause. Yes. Maya nodded. Then, I want copies. Harris looked at her for one beat, then reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. Good. Maya took out her own phone. The cracked screen lit up with the rehabilitation center's message again. She ignored the weight of it and opened the camera. Harris held out the signed note from Greg Wallace first. Maya photographed it. Then Harris called Miss Parker, who came down the hall carrying Maya's written statement in a folder. The city representative looked at Maya, then at Harris, and seemed to understand without explanation. You want images of your statement before it enters the file, Miss Parker said. Maya said, I want proof it existed before anyone summarized it. Miss Parker nodded. Smart. She opened the folder against the vending machine. Maya photographed each page. Page 1, page 2, page 3. Her own handwriting filled the screen. The words did not look powerful. They looked plain. That made them harder to bend. A door opened down the hallway. Director Mercer stepped out of conference room B with a phone pressed to his ear. He saw the three women near the vending machines and stopped mid-sentence. I'll call you back, he said, and ended the call. Maya lowered her phone. Mercer approached with the controlled pace of a man trying to look less cornered than he was. Miss Williams, I was about to send someone to find you, Harris said. She has not left the building. I can see that, Captain. Miss Parker closed the folder. What do you need, Director? Mercer looked at Maya. A brief administrative clarification. Maya said, in writing. He blinked. It's only a conversation. Then, I don't need it. His face hardened for less than a second. Miss Williams, we are trying to handle this professionally. Maya slipped her phone into her pocket. You started with cash on the floor. Don't lecture me about professional. Miss Parker's eyes lowered. Not to hide amusement, but to keep the room from becoming another room too soon. Mercer inhaled. The officers have raised concerns about selective recording. Harris's head turned. Their microphones were live. They claim they were unaware hallway audio was being captured. Maya looked toward conference room B. They knew the mics were on when they liked being instructors, Mercer said. That may be, but we need to avoid contamination of the review. Miss Parker's voice sharpened. By preserving too much evidence? I did not say that. You're circling it. Mercer did not like that. This is an internal chain of command matter, Maya said. No, it's a chain of custody matter. The words stopped him. Harris looked at Maya with something close to pride, but she kept it off her face. Mercer recovered. Miss Williams, I would caution you against using terms you may not fully understand. Maya stepped closer. Not into his space, just close enough that he could not pretend he was speaking over her. I understand custody. I understand chains. Pick another warning. Miss Parker made a small note. Mercer saw the pen and changed tone. No one is warning you. Maya looked at Harris. Timestamp? Harris turned toward the hall camera mounted above the vending area. Cameras live. Mercer looked up. For the first time that night, he seemed to understand how small a building could become when every corner had memory. He lowered his voice. Fine. Let us be direct. The Academy will conduct a formal administrative review. You will be contacted for follow-up. You are excused for the evening with pay. Maya said. Regular shift? With pay. Tomorrow? Pending scheduling. No. Mercer's brows drew together. No? I have Greg Wallace's signed note. Same shift. Same hours. No discipline from tonight. You were in the room. That note was from facilities management. And now you're trying to step over it. Mercer's mouth tightened. Miss Parker looked up from her notebook. Director. Changing her schedule immediately after the incident. Will not read well. He turned to her. Nothing about tonight reads well. Then stop writing worse. The hall went quiet. Maya reached into her pocket and touched the folded note. I'll be here tomorrow. Mercer stared at her. Why would you want to come back? Maya answered without hesitation. Because I still have a mother in therapy and bills that don't care what happened here. For once, Mercer had no polished reply. The door to conference room B opened again. Eric stood in the frame. No microphone now. No audience behind him. No class to instruct. Ethan was visible over his shoulder, pacing. Eric looked at Maya. They want us to write supplemental statements. Maya said, use facts. They're shorter. His jaw flexed. You think this ends clean for you? Harris stepped forward. Officer Caldwell. Eric kept his eyes on Maya. No threat. Just a question. Maya said. Then ask it better. Eric's face cooled. What do you think happens when this leaves the academy? People pick sides. They cut clips. They call you brave for a day. Then they call you difficult forever. Mercer said. Officer Caldwell. Back inside. Eric ignored him. You'll be the woman who made everything about race. Maya looked at Miss Parker. Is he on hallway camera? Miss Parker looked up. Yes. Maya turned back to Eric. Keep going. Eric's lips pressed together. Ethan shouted from inside the room. Eric, shut up. Maya tilted her head. Too late for both of you. Eric stepped back into the room and closed the door. Mercer looked as if another year had been taken off his life. Miss Williams, leave for the evening. Maya said. After I get my things, I'll have them brought to you. No, Harris said. I'll walk with her. Mercer did not object. They returned toward Training Hall A. Through the open door, Maya saw Wallace still working at the mat. Slower now, shoulders rounded. Mr. Lane was packing drives into labeled envelopes under Miss Parker's direction. Two cadets remained near the front row, speaking quietly to each other until Maya entered. Then they stopped. The young woman cadet stood. Miss Williams. Maya paused. The cadet swallowed. I should have said something sooner. Maya looked at her. Yes. The cadet's face reddened, but she did not look away. I will next time. Maya held her gaze. That's the only apology that matters. The older cadet nodded once, as if he had heard something worth carrying. Maya walked to the edge of the room where her damaged cart stood. The bent wheel leaned inward like a broken ankle. Her cleaning gloves were still tucked in the side basket. Her lunch bag sat underneath, a brown paper sack with a turkey sandwich she had never eaten and a small apple wrapped in a napkin. She picked up the bag. Wallace stopped mopping. Maya. She did not turn. I'll replace the cart tonight. She looked back. In writing. He held up a sheet. Already done. Harris took it, read it, and handed it to Maya. Maya folded that paper too. 2 papers in her pocket now. One for her job, one for the cart. Both small, both necessary. In America, sometimes dignity came stapled to documentation. Her phone vibrated once more. She looked. Rehabilitation Center. Online payment portal closes at 10 p.m. She checked the time. Jodan Shatzifen. Maya closed her lunch bag and headed for the exit. Harris followed her to the lobby. The academy's glass doors reflected them side by side. One woman in a captain's uniform, one woman in damp work pants. both carrying the same tired understanding that systems did not correct themselves. People made them. People hid inside them. People had to drag the truth out under lights. At the door, Harris said, "I can give you a ride." Maya shook her head. "I need the bus. It's late." "I know." Harris did not argue. She only took a business card from her pocket and wrote a number on the back. Not the academy line. Mine. Maya accepted it. "Use it if anything changes before tomorrow," Harris said. Maya looked at the card. Something already changed. Harris waited. Maya pushed the glass door open. They don't get to be alone with the story anymore. She stepped outside, into the night. Lunch bag in one hand, folded papers in her pocket, hospital bill waiting on her phone. Behind her, Stonebridge Police Training Academy glowed like a building that had not yet realized its windows were transparent. The bus pulled away from Stonebridge at 9:29 p.m. Maya sat near the middle, lunch bag on her lap, damp shoes planted under the seat, the folded papers in her pocket pressed against her hip every time the bus hit a rough patch of road. She checked them twice before the first stop. Job still scheduled. Cart replacement promised. Small papers, thin protection, better than trust. Her phone screen glowed in her hand. Rehabilitation center. Online payment portal closes at 10 p.m. She opened her banking app. Available balance, $63.42. Minimum payment due, $410. Maya stared at the numbers until they stopped looking like numbers and started looking like a locked door. The cash Ethan had thrown at her was still lying inside an evidence square back at Stonebridge. She could see it clearly. Wet mat, taped boundary, folded bills. She hated that for half a second her mind had counted them. Hated that the bills might have covered the payment. Hated more that Ethan had known exactly where to aim. Her thumb hovered over the payment field. $63.42 would not stop anything. She closed the app. The bus turned onto a wider road. A man in a Braves cap slept 2 seats ahead, chin against his chest. An older woman across the aisle held a grocery bag close to her knees and watched Maya with the careful sympathy of someone who knew better than to ask questions in public. Maya's phone rang. Rehabilitation center. She answered before the second ring. "This is Maya Williams." A tired woman's voice came through. "Miss Williams, this is Denise from Peachtree Recovery Center. I'm sorry to call this late." "It's fine. I'm calling about the balance on Evelyn Williams's account. We still need the minimum payment before tomorrow morning's session." "I know." There was a pause. Paper moved on the other end. "Your mother has been doing well. Her therapist wants continuity." Maya looked out at the dark windows flashing past. "So do I. I understand." "No," Maya said, quieter. "You process it." Denise did not answer right away. Maya closed her eyes for 1 second. "I'm sorry." "No, ma'am," Denise said. "You're not the first daughter I've called with a bill she can't pay." That made Maya open her eyes. Denise continued. "Lower now. Can you make any partial payment tonight? I have $63. Don't send all of it." Maya gripped the phone. "What?" "Send 25. It keeps the account active until billing reviews it in the morning. It won't clear the hold, but it helps me write a note." Maya's throat tightened. "A note matters?" "Sometimes." Maya almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because her whole night had become notes. Timestamps, statements, paper trails, proof that something existed before somebody tried to rename it. "I'll send 25, Maya said. "Do that, then call at 8 sharp." "I will." "And Miss Williams?" "Yes?" "Your mother asked today if you were eating." Maya looked at the brown paper lunch bag on her lap. "Tell her yes." "Are you?" Maya stared at the sandwich she had forgotten. "I am now." Denise let out a soft breath. "Good night." Maya hung up and paid $25 before she could think too long about the remaining 38. Then she opened the lunch bag. The turkey sandwich was warm at the edges and flattened from the long shift. She ate half of it slowly, watching her reflection in the bus window chew like someone else. At the next stop, the older woman across the aisle stood to leave. As she passed, she placed a small packet of peanut butter crackers on the empty seat beside Maya. Maya looked up. The woman did not stop. "Had an extra." Then she stepped off the bus. Maya picked up the crackers. No speech, no pity. Just salt and peanut butter and a kindness small enough to keep its dignity. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She almost ignored it. Then a text appeared. This is Captain Harris. Save this number. Do not answer unknown calls from Academy staff tonight. Text me screenshots if anyone contacts you. Maya typed back. Understood. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Harris wrote, You did well. Maya looked at the message for a long moment. Then she typed, It shouldn't have required doing well. Harris replied almost immediately, No, it shouldn't have. Maya put the phone face down. She reached her apartment complex at 10:18. The parking lot lights flickered. A neighbor's television glowed blue through thin curtains. Somewhere upstairs, someone laughed too loudly at a game show. The ordinary sounds felt strange after Stonebridge, like life had kept moving without asking permission. Inside her apartment, the air smelled faintly of menthol cream and black coffee. Her mother was asleep in the recliner, a blanket over her knees, one hand curled loosely against her chest. The walker stood beside her like a patient metal animal. Maya set her lunch bag on the kitchen counter and watched Evelyn breathe. The anger that had kept Maya upright all evening lowered itself carefully into something heavier. Evelyn stirred. Baby? Maya moved closer. I'm here. You eat? Maya looked at the half sandwich in the bag. Yes, ma'am. Evelyn opened her eyes halfway. Don't lie to your mama. Maya smiled despite herself. Half a sandwich. That's not dinner. It counts tonight. Evelyn studied her face. Old mothers had their own cameras. No blinking red light. No timestamp. Still recording everything. What happened? Evelyn asked. Maya sat on the edge of the couch. Work got ugly. How ugly? Maya slipped the folded papers from her pocket and placed them on the coffee table. Documented. Ugly. Evelyn looked at the papers, then at Maya's wrist. Her face changed. Who put hands on you? Maya covered the mark lightly. It's handled. That is not what I asked. Maya exhaled. An officer at the academy. Evelyn's eyes sharpened in a way the stroke had not taken from her. And you came home? I came home. With your name? Maya looked at her. Evelyn's voice was thin, but steady. Don't let anybody make you leave your name on their floor. Maya looked away fast, not wanting tears to start now. I didn't, she said. Evelyn nodded once. Good. Maya helped her mother from the recliner to the bedroom. The walk took time. Small steps. One hand on the walker. Maya's arm close, but not grabbing. Evelyn hated being rushed almost as much as she hated being helped. At the bedroom door, Evelyn stopped. Therapy tomorrow? Maya hesitated only a fraction. Yes, she said. I called. Evelyn knew the difference between answer and guarantee, but she was tired. She let the mercy stand. After Evelyn settled, Maya returned to the kitchen. She ate the rest of the sandwich standing over the sink. Then, the crackers. Then she photographed the papers again under brighter light and emailed them to herself, Captain Harris, and a new folder she named Stonebridge. At 11:06, another text came from an unknown number. Miss Williams, this is Director Mercer. Please do not discuss tonight's internal matter with outside parties until official review is complete. We will meet tomorrow to resolve this professionally. Maya stared at the screen. Then, she took a screenshot and sent it to Captain Harris. Harris replied, Do not respond. Maya did not. She plugged in her phone, turned off the kitchen light, and stood in the dark for a moment, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and her mother's faint breathing down the hall. Tomorrow, they would put her in another room. Tomorrow, they would use softer words. Tomorrow, they would try to make the truth sound expensive. Maya touched the counter, steadying herself. Let them, she whispered. This time, she had copies. At 7:42 the next morning, Maya stood outside Stonebridge Police Training Academy with the same lunch bag in one hand and a folder in the other. She had slept less than 4 hours. Her work pants were dry now, but the shoes still carried a faint gray stain from the mop water Ethan had kicked across them. She had cleaned the red mark on her wrist before leaving home, not to hide it, but to see it clearly. It had darkened overnight. At the front desk, the officer on duty looked up, recognized her, and looked down too fast. "Morning," Maya said. He cleared his throat. "Morning, ma'am. That word again. Na's not enough to fix anything. Enough to show the building had heard." Greg Wallace was waiting near the lobby doors with a new janitorial cart beside him. The plastic was clean, the wheels straight, the bucket still smelling like factory rubber. A folded sheet of paper rested on top. "Replacement cart," he said. "Written confirmation, like you asked." Maya took the paper. It stated the damaged equipment had been replaced at Academy expense, and that no cost would be charged to the cleaning vendor or employee. She read every line before folding it. Wallace shifted. "I also corrected your hours from last week. There was an error." Maya looked up. "An error?" His face reddened. 2 hours missing. 2.5. He swallowed. 2.5. In writing? He handed her another sheet. Maya took it. Wallace tried a smile. "It failed. Payroll should process Friday," Maya said. "Should? Will?" She waited. He nodded once. "Will." Captain Harris came down the hall before Wallace could say anything else. She wore the same steady expression as the night before, but her eyes moved first to Maya's wrist. "You got my message," Harris said. "I got Mercer's too." "Good. Don't answer him directly." "I didn't." Harris nodded toward the administrative wing. "They moved the meeting up." "Of course they did. Ms. Parker is here." "Good." Mercer asked that the vendor representative attend. Maya looked at Wallace. He lifted both hands slightly. "Not my idea," Maya said. "But you came." Wallace's eyes dropped. "Yes." They walked together toward the administrative conference rooms. The academy felt different in daylight. Quieter, but not calmer. Cadets in the corridor stopped talking when Maya passed. One instructor turned away from a bulletin board, as if he had been reading the same flyer for 10 minutes. A receptionist near the records office whispered into a phone, then hung up when she saw Harris. Maya did not slow down. Conference room C had a long table, 6 chairs, a wall monitor, and a pot of coffee no one had touched. Director Mercer sat at the far end with a legal pad in front of him. Beside him sat a woman Maya had not met. Gray suit, pearl earrings, no wasted movement. Mercer stood. "Miss Williams." Maya did not sit. "Name?" The woman in gray answered before Mercer could. "Ellen Stroud, counsel for the academy." Maya looked at Harris. "So, it's that kind of meeting." Miss Parker entered behind them. "Which is why I'm here." Counsel Stroud gave Miss Parker a measured nod. "City liaison." "City representative," Miss Parker corrected. Maya sat. Harris sat on her left. Miss Parker sat on her right. Wallace took the chair farthest from everyone and placed his hands flat on the table. Mercer began. "The purpose of this meeting is to establish a shared understanding of last night's events." Maya opened her folder. "No." Mercer paused. "Excuse me? The purpose is not shared understanding. The purpose is record correction. Shared understanding is what people say when they want the victim to carry half the lie." Stroud wrote something. Maya looked at her. "Write all of it." Stroud's pen stopped. Miss Parker looked down at her own notebook, but Maya saw the corner of her mouth move. Mercer inhaled carefully. "Very well. Record correction. The Academy acknowledges that the opening portion of last night's demonstration was inappropriate." Maya said. "Racist." Stroud lifted her eyes. "Miss Williams." Maya turned to her. "Did you watch the recording?" "Yes." "Did he say he needed a black girl to play the criminal?" Stroud said nothing. Maya waited. "Yes," Stroud said. "Then don't translate for him." Harris folded her hands on the table. Mercer said, "Officer Ethan Caldwell has been placed on administrative leave pending further review." Maya looked at him. "Paid?" Stroud answered. "Administrative leave is paid, under current policy." Maya nodded. "So he gets paid to wait. I had to get a signed note to keep my shift." Wallace looked down. Mercer said, "Officer Eric Caldwell has been removed from instructional duties pending review." "Paid too?" "Yes," Stroud said. Maya wrote it down. Mercer watched her pen. "Miss Williams, this is not a disciplinary hearing." "No," Maya said. "It's the room before one." Miss Parker looked at Mercer. "Where are the recordings?" Stroud answered. Original files remain on the Academy server. 2 external copies were preserved last night. Who has custody? 1 copy is with the city office. 1 is with Captain Harris under Academy Evidence Protocol. Harris said. Logged at 10:04 p.m. Maya looked at Stroud. And the hallway audio? Stroud's face stilled. That is under review for scope. Maya leaned back. Meaning you don't like it. Meaning we must determine relevance. Maya opened her folder and removed a printed screenshot of Mercer's late-night text. She slid it across the table. Stroud read it. Her expression did not change, but her fingers tightened slightly on the paper. Maya said, "Is that relevant?" Mercer's face flushed. That message was intended to prevent public speculation before review. Miss Parker said. It instructed her not to discuss an incident involving her. Stroud looked at Mercer. Director, did you send this after council was notified? Mercer hesitated. Maya answered. Timestamp is on the screenshot. Stroud did not thank her. Harris placed a second document on the table. I received the screenshot at 11:07 p.m. I instructed Miss Williams not to respond. Stroud looked from Harris to Maya. You have been very thorough. Maya said, I clean for a living. Details matter. That quieted the room. Mercer tried another tone. Softer. Older. Almost regretful. Miss Williams, no one here wants your mother's care interrupted because of what happened at this academy. Maya's pen stopped. There it was. Not an apology. A hook. She looked up slowly. Do not bring my mother into your sentence, unless you're paying the invoice. Stroud closed her eyes for half a second. Mercer said, We are prepared to discuss compensation. Say, settlement. Compensation. Say settlement. Stroud spoke. Potential settlement. Maya turned toward her. Thank you. Stroud opened a folder. The Academy is willing to cover damaged property, unpaid hours, and an additional goodwill payment in exchange for a standard confidentiality agreement while the review proceeds. Maya did not touch the paper. How much? Stroud named a number. It was enough to cover Evelyn's immediate therapy hold. Enough to buy groceries. Enough to fix the car's bad tire. Not enough to buy what they were asking for. Maya looked at Mercer. You found a cleaner way to throw cash. He stiffened. Stroud said, This is a formal offer. Maya said, With a gag. With confidentiality. With a gag. Miss Parker looked at the offer. Does this require Miss Williams to characterize the incident as a misunderstanding? Stroud did not answer quickly enough. Maya laughed once. Small. Cold. Harris asked. Does it? Stroud said. It includes non-disparagement language and mutual acknowledgement of a training miscommunication. Maya pushed the folder back with 2 fingers. No. Mercer leaned forward. Miss Williams, please consider carefully. Legal processes take time. Bills do not. The room went still. Maya looked at him for a long moment. Then she took out her phone, opened the payment confirmation from the night before, and placed it on the table. $25 kept my mother's account open until this morning, she said. Not because you helped. Because a billing clerk wrote a note. Mercer said nothing. Maya picked up the settlement folder and held it just long enough for everyone to see it. Poor people are often asked to sell the truth at a discount, she said. Today, I'm not poor enough for this. She dropped the folder back on the table. Stroud capped her pen. Miss Parker wrote something slowly. Harris looked straight ahead, but her shoulders eased for the first time. Wallace, from the far chair, spoke quietly. She should be paid for last night. Everyone turned to him. He looked terrified, but he kept going. The whole shift. Overtime, too. She was kept after work for academy business. Mercer stared at him. Wallace swallowed. That's payroll, not settlement. Maya looked at him. Write it. He reached for his pen. I will. Stroud gathered the rejected offer. Then we proceed formally. Maya stood. Good, Mercer said. This may become uncomfortable. Maya picked up her folder. It already was. She walked to the door, then stopped and looked back at the long table, the untouched coffee, the lawyer's folder, Mercer's careful face, Wallace's shaking hand. Next time you want a shared understanding, she said, Start with the truth. Then she opened the door and stepped into the hallway with her copies still in her hand. Maya did not return to the training hall after the meeting. She went to the supply room, clocked in, and began her shift. That bothered people more than if she had stormed out. By noon, the academy had changed shape around her. Conversations stopped when she entered a hallway. Doors that had always stayed open eased shut as she passed. Cadets looked at her with a new caution. Not fear exactly, not respect fully formed yet, but awareness. The kind people develop when they realize the person emptying the trash may remember more than what was thrown away. Maya cleaned the administrative corridor first. She did not rush. At 12:43, Wallace found her outside the records office, wiping fingerprints from the glass panel beside the door. He held a payroll correction form in one hand. Overtime approved, he said. Maya kept wiping. For last night? Yes. Full shift? Yes. After hours hold? Wallace looked down at the form. Included. Signatures? Mine and Mercer's. That made her stop. She took the paper, read it twice, then folded it and placed it in her folder. Wallace shifted his weight. I also called Peachtree Recovery. Maya looked at him. I didn't discuss details, he said quickly. Only billing. I asked where a payment could be sent if the academy processed emergency hardship support. Maya's face did not soften. Hardship? That's what the form is called. Not settlement? No. Payroll and hardship support. No confidentiality language. Maya waited. Wallace swallowed. Miss Parker reviewed it. Captain Harris? She has a copy. Only then did Maya nod once. How much? He told her. It was enough to cover the therapy hold and the next 2 sessions. Maya gripped the spray bottle a little tighter. When? Today. Written? He handed her a second page. Maya read it slowly. Academy Emergency Employee Support Authorization. Evelyn Williams. Peachtree Recovery Center. Payment direct to provider. No waiver of claims. No confidentiality condition. No waiver of claims. She read that line again. Wallace said. Miss Parker made them add it. Good. He nodded. Yeah. Maya looked at him. Why are you doing this now? Wallace's eyes moved toward the records office door, then back to her. Because last night I watched you ask questions I should have asked before you had to. Maya said nothing. Wallace rubbed his hands together. That's not enough. I know. No, Maya said. It's paperwork. He accepted that like it was fair. Because it was. At 2:10, Maya's phone vibrated. Peachtree Recovery Center. Payment received. Therapy schedule confirmed for this week. She stood beside a trash bin full of shredded training memos and read the message 3 times. Payment received. Not justice. Not all of it. But her mother would not miss tomorrow's session. Maya lowered the phone before anyone could see her hand shake. At 3, the administrative review convened in the academy boardroom. Maya was not invited at first. Miss Parker noticed. By 3:07, Maya was sitting at the end of the table with her folder in front of her. Ethan and Eric sat on the opposite side. No uniforms this time. Only plain dress shirts that made them look less like symbols and more like men. Ethan's anger had gone flat and dangerous. Eric looked rested, which meant he had spent the morning preparing. Counsel Stroud sat between them and Mercer. Captain Harris sat beside Maya. Miss Parker placed 2 sealed evidence envelopes on the table. Mr. Lane sat near the wall, pale but present. The board chair, a retired judge named Eleanor Whitaker, entered last. She was in her 70s, silver-haired, compact, and moved with the tired precision of someone who had spent half her life listening to people lie in expensive rooms. She sat, opened a folder, and looked at no one for longer than a second. We are here to determine interim action, Judge Whitaker said. Not final discipline, not public messaging. Interim action. Mercer nodded. Yes, Judge. She looked at him. Do not agree with me until you know whether I'm helping you. The room tightened. Whitaker turned to Miss Parker. Recording? Miss Parker slid forward the evidence log. Preserved. Original on Academy server. 2 external copies. Hallway audio included. Eric's attorney posture appeared before his lawyer spoke. We object to hallway audio being considered. My client believed the recess had begun. Judge Whitaker looked at Eric. Were you still wearing an academy microphone? Eric said, yes. Were you still discussing the incident? Yes. But, then, I'll hear it. Stroud's lips pressed together. Mr. Lane played the first segment. Ethan's opening words filled the boardroom. No one looked at Maya this time. They looked at the table, the walls, their hands. Maya almost preferred the training hall. At least there, the shame had been new. Here, it was processed. Whitaker stopped the recording after Ethan grabbed Maya's wrist and called her resistant. She looked at Ethan. Training purpose? Ethan said. Role immersion. Whitaker stared at him. Try again. His lawyer leaned close, whispered. Ethan's jaw tightened. No valid training purpose. Good. We found one clean sentence. She turned to Eric. Your statement about cameras not helping people like her? Purpose? Eric said. Poor phrasing. Whitaker leaned back. I asked purpose. Eric went silent. Maya did not speak. She did not need to. Silence worked differently when the right person asked the question. The hallway audio played next. You drove it into the room, Eric's recorded voice said. Whitaker stopped the playback. Officer Eric Caldwell. That appears to be your own assessment of your brother's conduct. Eric's face tightened. In frustration. Was it false? He looked at Ethan. Ethan stared back. Eric said, no. Ethan pushed back from the table. You coward. Whitaker's eyes moved to him. Sit forward. He did. She turned one page. Officer Ethan Caldwell. Pending formal disciplinary proceedings. You are removed from instructional duties, suspended from academy privileges, and referred to the State Standards Division for review. Ethan's face changed. State standards? Yes, Stroud said. Judge, we should be cautious with external referral before final findings. Whitaker looked at her. A public training event involving a civilian employee, racial language, physical contact, and attempted administrative minimization. Caution is why I'm referring it. Maya watched Mercer's face when the word minimization landed. Whitaker turned to Eric. Officer Eric Caldwell. You are removed from instructional duties, suspended from scenario leadership, and referred for review regarding conduct, reporting integrity, and discriminatory language. Eric said, I never touched her. Maya spoke for the first time. You tried to frame what he touched. Whitaker looked at Maya. Not warning. Permission. Eric had no answer. Whitaker turned to Mercer. Director, Mercer, you are relieved of sole control over the internal review. All public statements and evidence handling will be reviewed by City Council and this board. Mercer's face went still. That is a significant step. Yes, I acted to stabilize the situation. You acted to rename it before reviewing it. No one moved. Whitaker looked at Wallace. Facilities? Wallace sat up. Miss Williams's shift, overtime, damaged equipment, and hardship support are documented and processed. No discipline, no schedule change. Good, Whitaker said. Put all of it in the board file. Maya's phone vibrated again. She glanced down. Peachtree Recovery Center. Evelyn completed today's assisted walk. 12 steps. 12 steps. Maya placed the phone face down on the table and pressed her fingers over it. Ethan saw the movement. For once, he did not speak. Whitaker closed her folder. This is interim. Formal findings will follow. No one contacts Miss Williams outside approved channels. No one discusses her employment, except in writing. No one touches the recordings except under logged custody. Clear? Yes, Mercer said. Whitaker looked at Ethan. He forced the word out. Clear. Eric nodded. Clear. Whitaker stood. Then we're done for today. People began gathering papers, but Maya stayed seated. Harris leaned toward her. You all right? Maya looked at the sealed envelopes, the signed payroll forms, the message about her mother's 12 steps, and the two brothers no longer sitting like winners. No, she said. Harris nodded, accepting the truth, without trying to polish it. Maya stood and picked up her folder. As she passed Ethan's side of the table, he said under his breath, You ruined my career. Maya stopped. Everyone heard him. She turned. No, she said. I preserved the part you wrote yourself. Then she walked out before the room could turn her sentence into anything else. 1 week later, Maya Williams returned to Stonebridge Police Training Academy through the front entrance, not the service door. The morning security officer looked up from his desk and stood halfway before he seemed to know what to do with himself. "Miss Williams," he said. Maya nodded. "Morning." No one asked her to sign in as a vendor. No one pointed toward the supply room. A visitor badge was already waiting on the counter with her name printed in black block letters. Maya looked at it. Maya Williams. Meeting guest. She did not put it on. Captain Harris met her near the lobby. "You didn't have to come." Maya looked down the hall. "I know. They're going to make an offer. I know that too." Harris studied her face. "You already have an answer." Maya picked up the badge, turned it once between her fingers, and set it back on the counter. "I came to give it in person." They walked together toward the administrative wing. The academy was quieter than it had been the week before, but not peaceful. New notices had appeared on bulletin boards. Interim conduct review. Scenario training suspended pending policy audit. Mandatory reporting refreshers. Words that sounded clean because paper never had to look anyone in the eye. Maya passed Training Hall A. The door was open. The mat had been cleaned. The cart was gone. No cash. No water. No broom across the boundary. Anyone walking in fresh would see a polished training room and think nothing had happened there. Maya stopped at the doorway. Harris stopped with her. "They cleaned it fast," Maya said. "Yes. Well, did they learn that fast?" Harris did not answer. Maya gave a small nod. "That's what I thought." Conference room C had been rearranged. Fewer chairs, fresh coffee, bottled water, a small plate of pastries no one had touched. Director Mercer stood when Maya entered. Ellen Stroud, the Academy Counsel, sat with a folder closed in front of her. Miss Parker was there too, seated near the window, her notebook already open. Judge Eleanor Whitaker sat at the head of the table, hands folded over a thin stack of papers. "No, Ethan. No, Eric." Their absence filled the room anyway. Mercer gestured to a chair. "Miss Williams, thank you for coming." Maya sat. "Say what you called me here to say." Stroud opened the folder. "The Academy Board has authorized an offer for a consulting position, community training advisor. Part-time to start, with the option to expand." Maya looked at the folder but did not touch it. Mercer said, "We believe your experience could help us improve scenario design, civilian contact protocols, and community trust." Maya looked at him. "My experience?" He held her gaze, but only barely. "What happened last week revealed gaps." Maya said, "Gaps don't kick carts." Miss Parker's pen moved. Stroud slid a single sheet forward. The position would be paid. No confidentiality requirement regarding the incident. No waiver of existing claims. Direct reporting line to the board. Not Academy command. Maya looked at Miss Parker. Miss Parker nodded once. "That part is true." Judge Whitaker spoke next. "I recommended the reporting structure." Maya looked at her. "Why?" "Because if you reported to Mercer, the job would be a leash." Mercer's jaw tightened, but he did not object. Maya looked back at the paper. Community Training Advisor. Her name appeared beneath the title. Already typed, already formatted, already placed into their system, as if she had agreed before she arrived. She tapped the page once. "You printed my yes before I gave it," Stroud said. "It's a draft. It's a habit." The room went still. Mercer leaned forward. "Miss Williams, I understand your distrust, but this is a chance to turn harm into reform." Maya looked at him for a long moment. "You had reform in the room before I got there." He frowned. "I'm not sure I follow. You had cameras, policies, instructors, cadets, a director, a captain, donors, a city representative. You had all the equipment good people brag about after something goes wrong." She pointed toward the hallway. "And still, a man with a badge dragged me onto a mat after calling me a criminal." Mercer said nothing. Maya continued, voice even. What stopped him wasn't the system. It was Captain Harris refusing to blink, Miss Parker refusing to soften the record, a technician finally saving files, cadets finally writing facts, people finally doing late what they should have done first. Judge Whitaker watched her carefully, not interrupting, not rescuing. Maya looked at the offer again. Now you want to put my name on a program and call that change, Stroud said. It could be real change. Then make it without owning me. Harris's eyes lowered briefly. Mercer took a breath. No one is trying to own you. Maya looked at him. Last week, your officer threw money at me to make me a criminal. Today, you're offering a salary to make me forgiveness. Miss Parker stopped writing. Maya stood. Stroud said, Miss Williams, you don't have to decide this second. I decided when I saw the badge at the front desk. Mercer looked confused. The visitor badge? It said, meeting guest. Maya picked up the offer and turned it so Mercer could see her typed name. This says advisor. Last week, Ethan called me subject. Before that, Greg called me vendor. Every room in this building has a new word for me when it needs something. She placed the paper back on the table. My name is Maya Williams. That's enough. Judge Whitaker leaned back slightly, and for the first time, something like approval crossed her face. Mercer's voice softened. Your mother's therapy support will continue through the approved emergency fund. That is not tied to this offer. Maya looked at him sharply. Stroud said, that is in writing. Miss Parker slid a copy across the table. I reviewed it this morning. Maya read it. Evelyn Williams, direct provider payment, no employment or consulting condition, no waiver, no confidentiality. She folded the copy and placed it in her bag. Good, she said. Mercer seemed to take that as an opening. Then, perhaps, after some time, you might reconsider. Maya looked toward the window. From there, she could see the parking lot, the flagpole, the morning traffic beyond the academy gates. Ordinary America, moving past another building that believed itself important. No, she said. The word was not loud. It did not need height. It had weight. Stroud closed the folder slowly. Mercer looked disappointed, but underneath that, Maya saw relief. Her refusal would let him call the offer generous. Let him say the academy had tried. Let him keep a cleaner story for the board. Maya saw that too. So she added, and don't announce you offered me anything. Mercer stilled. If my name appears in a press release, I'll answer it with the first 30 seconds of the recording. Miss Parker wrote that down. Judge Whitaker said, that seems clear. Maya turned to Harris. Captain. Harris stood. Miss Williams. There was more behind both names than either woman said. Maya walked to the door. Before she opened it, Mercer spoke. What will you do now? Maya turned back. For once, he sounded less like a director and more like a man asking, because he did not know. Maya adjusted the strap of her bag on her shoulder. I'll go see my mother walk. No one had an answer for that. She left conference room C and walked down the administrative hallway alone. No escort, no badge, no cart. Through the open door of Training Hall A group of cadets stood in a circle while Captain Harris's voice carried behind her. Facts first, Harris said. Conclusions second. Maya did not stop, but she heard pens move. At the lobby, the security officer looked at the unused visitor badge on the counter. Should I check you out, ma'am? Maya shook her head. I was never checked in. He looked at the badge, then at her. Yes, ma'am. Outside, the Georgia air was warm enough to soften the morning. Maya stood on the front steps and took out her phone. A message from Peachtree Recovery Center waited on the screen. Evelyn completed 16 assisted steps today. Maya read it twice. Then a second message came. This one from her mother. Don't fuss. I did 18. They counted wrong. Maya laughed once, sudden and quiet, the sound almost surprising her. She typed back, I'm coming. Then she looked over her shoulder at Stonebridge Police Training Academy. The building stood bright, official, and polished. A place of seals and slogans. A place that had tried to turn her into a role, then a problem, then a symbol. She gave it none of those. Maya put the phone in her pocket and walked down the steps. No applause followed her. No camera crew waited. No one called her name from the doorway. That was fine. She had not come back to be seen leaving. She had come back to choose it. At the sidewalk, she passed the academy sign without slowing. Cars moved along the road ahead. Somewhere across town, her mother was taking stubborn steps in a therapy room that smelled faintly of antiseptic and coffee. Bills still existed. Work still waited. The world had not become fair overnight. Justice rarely arrived fair. Sometimes it arrived late, tired, and carrying paperwork. Sometimes it arrived as a saved file, a signed note, a payment received, a woman saying no in a room built to make her grateful. Maya kept walking. Behind her was the academy that had tried to write her part. Ahead of her was the rest of her life. And this time, she carried the pen. The lesson from Maya Williams's story is simple, but powerful. Dignity is not something the powerful get to hand out, and truth is not something the weak should have to beg for. Sometimes justice does not arrive with applause or bright lights. Sometimes it comes through a saved recording, a signed paper, a witness who finally speaks, and one brave person who refuses to let others rename what really happened. Thank you for listening to this story until the very end. If this story touched your heart, made you think, or reminded you of someone who once stood alone against unfairness, please leave a comment and share your thoughts. We would also love to hear your feedback about the way this story was told. Was the pacing right? Did the characters feel real? Was there a moment that stayed with you? And if you have a powerful true story, a family memory, or an inspiring experience about justice, courage, discrimination, sacrifice, or someone quietly standing up for what is right, please send it to the channel. Your story might become the next one that gives strength to someone else. This video is a work of fiction created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. All characters, events, and situations are not real and do not represent any actual people or true stories. The content is intended for storytelling and emotional illustration only.